This thing is being fired up. Where is it? Nope. Hold 1 second. Wait a second. 1 second. Make certain that everything is plugged in. That's plugged. That's plugged. This isn't plugged. Okay, 1 second. Come on in the room, people. Come on in the room. You don't see me, but I know you're there. Come in the room. Come in the room. Here we go. Okay. And we're going to start on time today. Isn't that nice? Hello, brother Roland. We're kicking off this channel, and we need to turn this way a little bit more. Okay. And open up this channel, and we'll be ready. How is everyone? Okay. Hey, Brooke. Hi, Devin. Hey, brother Mark. Welcome to, I think, maybe the first Angry Black book, or one of the first. I mean, I haven't done this in a while. The first of the spring, at least. And I hope that we're back on target. Let me adjust this a little bit on me, a little bit more on me. Hi, Devin. Hi, Roland. Hi, Brooke. Hi, is everybody? There you go. I want you to do like that. And yes, I have books to the ceiling. Welcome. It's officially that time for us to do the Angry Black Men's Book Club. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's been a minute, and I would just tell you I thank you for all your support and your prayers and all the wonderful sisterly calls from Sister Devin and Brother Roland and sometimes Brother Mark. Welcome to the Angry Black Men's Book Club. Please take a moment to like this. Please take a moment to share it with everyone you can think of. Take a minute, that's why we started a little bit before 10, to share it and let other people know, because, you know, my channel, like my Facebook, if you've been looking for me on Facebook, I've been messed with on Facebook. So some of the things are down. They have literally attacked what I was doing, where we were reaching maybe 1,500 to 5,000 people per time when we would go live. It's into the hundreds now. I'm not worried about it. I'll just keep doing what I do. But all of you should be sharing this link and share all the videos on the channel. All of them, they're good. And the books are back. I promised, I promised, I promised, and I promised, and I promised. And so I've like lost a Twitter account or two, I think 2. And they've incapacitated 2 Facebook accounts. So I rely on you guys to do some of my PR for me. Your help is needed. And let me see. What's the time? What's my time like? Let me check. Because I know it's the time. I know it's past 45. Yep, it's exactly 9:45. We're on time. We're on time. We're on time. We're on time. So so let me see. Hey George, Richard, could you be a moderator on here? In case I get any nuts, I'm gonna make you a moderator. Okay. So if anybody does anything really stupid, I can um I can have them silenced. And anybody on this channel here, anybody that needs to be a moderator, I just want to do this. And I have been like dying. I've been getting all these different books. Some not so new. There are a couple of these really awesome books. Torn Apart by Dorothy Roberts. She's a feminist, but she's probably the only feminist whose books I buy. She has this book, Torn Apart, talking about child and family services, how they steal children from black families. I'm going to be reading from that soon. She has another book called Killing the Black Body. I'll be reading from this soon. I promise to talk about racism and eugenics. And I want to say to you, speaking of racism and eugenics, when I spoke to my cardiologist on yesterday, I had to explain to him when I was dealing with congestive heart failure and multiple illnesses, the little racist doctor at Sibley Hospital where Dick Gregory died told the nurse, but not my mother and I, that I had acute anemia. It didn't say what kind, right? And there was no mention the entire time I was in the hospital about anemia. I didn't even get debriefed. He didn't talk to my mother and I before I got sent to a hospital room. In fact, he was trying to look for AIDS because he wanted to torment and insult me as a black man with AIDS. When he failed to find that I had AIDS, he wasn't interested in me as a patient. That's how modern racist medicine is. And I just remember hearing him say anemia in a low voice to the nurse, and I remembered it. And I had part of why you haven't seen me is I've been anemia runs in my family, men and women. And I talk to you guys, it's important to know your genealogy, and it makes sense. It runs out of my mother's family. And blood diseases are commonplace, in particular among people who are inbred, and also it's frequent for people who come from nobility. I'm not being arrogant when I say to you, according to my research on multiple sides, I come from multiple royal lineages: European, African, Amerindian, Mesoamerican. I'm the same person. I'm not tripping. The most important thing to me is that God knows who I am. Some of those people in history that you've heard about that are bastards, like I have a distant cousin you've heard about named Napoleon, who did a genocide on black people in Haiti, and he's a mulatto. So the lineage stuff doesn't go to my head because a lot of these big name people did a lot of evil to folks. But you need to know your lineage. When you know your lineage, in fact, that's what a lot of people do with 23andMe and other things, is trying to learn about the diseases in their family. And it's only after, all this stuff happened to me, I began to remember my mother would be very weak. I remember trying to open her eyes as a child. She'd be so exhausted. Um, uh, Anemia it's in our community. A lot of people that you see are depressed. Others, a lot of them have anemia, and a lot of people are getting anemic because they're trying to change their diet and eat healthy. And sometimes, for me, y'all gonna freak out. I'd stop trying to eat red meat altogether. And I only began to feel better when I began eating periodically red meat again. Go figure. I I felt my best since I had some steak. I had a bunch of them. They were good. Um, so we'll be talking about racism, all this stuff I promised you. And also, I want to let everybody know on tomorrow, we'll do for all of you that are Christian. I'm not ashamed. I'm black and Christian. If you're one of those voodoo Negroes, don't come. But for people, if you're interested in a Christian sermon from a black Christian, pro-black, anti-racism thing, uh, please check out the Salt Ministry. I'll be following up. I will be giving a sermon about reparations. Reparations is biblical. Uh, reparations is God's will. It's actually God's law. How about that? Any preacher, anybody that's not teaching people that you owe, you we are owed reparations. If this is supposedly a Christian nation, which it is not, but we're owed reparations, and I'll be talking about that from a biblical standard, a biblical basis. I was on a a white what's this thing called? What do they call themselves? Libertarian TV show, and I kicked this man's ass from a Christian perspective of why reparations were necessary and God's will. He hasn't talked to me since. I don't care. We need our, pardon my language, our motherfucking money in Jesus' name. And yes, I'm saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost, and I still want my damn money. We all should have. Just what I've been through with these health things, trying to put me on metformin, giving me gabapentin and other things that could have killed me when I was in the hospital. I am thankful for life. I want to remind everybody listening to this that they told my mother that I would not survive the operation because they wanted to take my organs. So what the heart attack didn't do, what the anemia didn't do, what the double pneumonia didn't do, what the internal bleeding from my heart didn't do, what the miracle, and that's why I'll just say to everybody, yes, I'm a Christian. Yes, I believe in Jesus Christ. Yes, I pray. It's all real. For all of you that don't believe in anything, all you fake black people, we don't have nuclear weapons. We don't have armies. Now we don't even have God. We're pathetic. I want to say to you, even a little racist doctor that was trying to hint that I had AIDS in the hospital couldn't believe with congestive heart failure, anemia, double pneumonia, and internal bleeding, and a heart pumping at 50% the rate, my blood oxygen level, actually, my blood oxygen level when I was in the emergency room at Sibley Hospital 2 years and some change ago was better than my blood oxygen level yesterday in my cardiologist's office. Yesterday it was 96. When my heart wasn't working, it was 99. If y'all don't believe in God, y'all are sick. The devils would have killed me. God is real. I'm not talking about fake ass people like TD Jakes. How dare we compare God to some fake broke-back, bald-headed, walrus-looking TD Jakes? It's insane. So I'm a living witness. The doctors couldn't understand why my blood oxygen level was so high. Ideally, they would have thought I should have had organ failure and I should have died in February 2022. I should have bled to death or had bad, low blood oxygen and died from internal organ failure. So I could care less. I don't respect atheists, especially black ones. I especially have contempt for black paganists and black atheists and black Luciferians, because everybody hates us. Everybody's out to get us, including a lot of our traitors. Oh my God. Um, you, the person writing me from St. Louis, I want you to email me. We must talk. My email is on the screen. Let's do this. First and foremost, again, I'm Dr. Randy Short. I think y'all know this. I think you know that this is the Angry Black Men's Book Club. I think you know that the Cash App is $ Dr. Randy Short. You know the Zelle and the PayPal at wrandyshort@gmail.com. And the wrandyshort@gmail.com is my personal email. I respond to correspondence. If we can't have a conversation here, I'm saying, is that OG brother? Please write me. I'm very concerned about St. Louis. I was just talking to my god sister who lived just 100 feet from where Michael Brown bled out. Well, that's okay. Still contact me. St. Louis is a cesspool, as every black community is, because there's a war being waged against us, which is why this book gave me so much energy. This is called Tip of the Spear: Black Radicalism, Prison Repression, and the Long Attica Revolt. Again, this book is by Orasanmi Burton. He's a professor at American University. He's an anthropologist. Dr. Burton, this is one of the most powerful books I've ever begun to read. I didn't even finish it. It moved me so much. My email address is up here. It's on the screen. wrandyshort@gmail.com. I'm not trying to be smart, but it's up on the screen. You'd be amazed at how many people don't look at the information. I'm not hiding anything from anyone. There are a lot of folks, they want to be famous. I'm not interested in being famous. Proof of that is how often I don't do these. I could do it every day like everybody else. I'm not obsessed to be famous. I wouldn't mind the fortune. Fame, I've been around famous people, and so has Devin. It's weird. I'm afraid of it. It's scary for me to go somewhere and people know me and I don't know who's talking to me. It's uncomfortable, not because I don't like people, but damn, they may hate me and know who I am. So this isn't about fame for me. Okay, came from a well-known family, mother singer, father player, and it was quite weird. Folks know what kind of car you drive, where you live. If your house is broke, they know it. You lose yourself with fame. You have to be a kind of sick person to want to be famous, to have so many people in the middle of your thing. Well, St. Louis is one of my ancestral cities. Um, I am hoping to be in St. Louis sometime this year. I can't wait to go back. I want to go to Chicago. And by the way, guys, I have a GoFundMe. I will be sharing that information subsequently, start sending links. But I have a GoFundMe because St. Louis is one of the places. The last time I did a GoFundMe, I went to St. Louis and to Cahokia and to meet activists in East St. Louis and talk to people and try to expose the genocide of Monsanto and other people in the St. Louis area. It is horrible. Um, I want to let you guys know I need to go to Cleveland. I'm working as a consultant for, if anybody is in the Cleveland area, there's a brother by the name of Antonio Nicholson. He is running to be the judge on the Court of Common Pleas. His mission is to fight to find missing black women and children. I'm working as a consultant for the campaign. He is not running as a Democrat, but who the hell cares? The Democrats aren't trying to find our missing black babies. I don't care which party you're in. I care about whether you're trying to serve us. Okay? Anybody that is in Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, um, anybody that is, and by the way, how are you, Terrence, and everybody over here? Um, Devin, I need you to be watching all these different places. So come on and watch the rooms because folks start getting interesting. But I'll be looking for you guys to help me out. I can't do it alone, but the Nicholson brothers are wrestlers, and they're one of the few blacks who provide genuine, inexpensive legal aid and defense for, in particular, poor black men in Cuyahoga County, which is Cleveland. And I told my fellowship and I told other people, and I did a live last year, I don't know, I got to do something. I'm mad about all these missing kids. I don't even have kids. I'm pissed. I can't stand pedophiles, predators. I don't like any of them. And if that's a problem for you, this is not the channel for you. I don't think you're a freak, you're a monster if you're bothering children. You're worthy of death. I said it. I don't care who likes me. Um, so anyway, we're going to kick this off. Welcome to the Angry Black Men's Book Club. It's a miracle they haven't taken this channel away. You have no idea how they play with the numbers and shadow ban, but we're going to do what we're going to do, right? I refuse to be intimidated. I refuse to give up. Um, oh my God, I've been in Alton. Oh my God. In fact, in Alton, Illinois is where they murdered a white abolitionist by the name of Elijah Lovejoy in 1837. They burned a white man alive with his printing press. There's some hate in St. Louis. That's a hateful ass place. By the way, on Sunday, I know I'll be doing readings. I'm going to do maybe a small sermon, but I'm going to be talking about religious racism or bigotry, fake Christianity, which is a major problem. It's Luciferian, and so let me see. One of the people I've had this book here. There are two of them. This is George Whitefield. He's one of the fathers of white fundamentalism, and the Bible teaches that man can't serve God and money. He will love one and hate the other. George Whitefield, who's the father of white fundamentalism and evangelicalism, basically betrayed the teachings of the scripture because white folks and white British people couldn't make it without enslaved black Indians and black Africans. Okay? So the Christianity that a lot of us are introduced to is trash. It's satanic. It doesn't believe in love or respect or human rights. That's why they're all down with this genocide going on in Gaza, while they're silent about the genocide in Congo and silent about the genocide in Sudan and in Ethiopia and in Haiti, and they're silent about it here. And of course, I've got some other stuff. I have been just dying. Y'all have no idea. Plus, I'm going to keep it contemporary. I might switch up between chapters. This is a book I just got talking about the gangs and how the gangs and the political system in Chicago are intertwined. Black thugs are not our friends. They could be, but they're not. They are just, a lot of them just scum. I know that they're trapped, but damn. I will be sharing that. I'll be doing more stuff on Chicago. And let me see, I've got so many of these. Woo, Jesus. I might take a piece now and then because I've had these things. I got this book, it's hard to get, called The Blood Never Dried by Newsinger. Talks about how the English speaking people all over the world killed and murdered people for their empire that the sun never sat on. And the sun never set on it, and the blood didn't dry either. Let me see, I got one, couple more, and there are others coming in. I'm gonna touch on this eventually, the black tax. It shows how black people were cheated through the tax system, that hundreds of billions of dollars have been stolen from the black community. Even when black folks were sharecropping by the tax system, we've been kept poor by it. Not that you don't know, but it's nice. There'll be some factoids and show that it's been like this. Even when everybody black had a job and was working, we would get messed over. I had mentioned to you earlier, and let me pull the book back up, because this woman, Dorothy Roberts, has these books, Torn Apart and Killing the Black Body. These are on Amazon or other places, but they're worth getting. You can get it if you don't like reading. Audible has a really nice thing, talks about everything. We're going to be talking about that because I promised to talk about race and eugenics and this stuff in Gaza. Says there's no time like the present. Again, with my religion and race series, it's going to be coming up. This is one of the books that breaks down Robert Dabney. He is the white supremacist father of the racist Kill All the Blacks evangelical movement that's running, it's all over the country. And this lady breaks it down. So I'm going to take that and merge it with the book on Whitfield. And I have Dabney's book. I think it's right here. Oh, yes. This is the white supremacist father. His name is Robert Dabney. What's his middle name? Robert Louis Dabney. And he is the father of teaching folks that slavery was God's will. Abolitionism is Luciferianism. In other words, black people being free is of the devil. There are white people that believe this. And what I will do is link up Dabney and even this book on here with this book on pro-slavery thought. And you'll find that the language being used to justify why we don't get they're against us getting reparations. It's the same language that we're using to justify slavery. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Let me stop, because it's about time. You guys ready? Are you guys ready? I know y'all ready. I mean, because I'm ready. I have been dying. Y'all don't know. When I wasn't feeling well, man, I said, I miss my book club. Miss all my crazy friends. I don't have Black Klansmen, but the Congressional Black Caucus is all Klansmen as far as I'm concerned. I've met them in person. And this is a really nice one. I will add that with Dorothy Porter's book, Torn Apart. This is called Confronting the Racist Legacy of American Child Welfare System. Stealing black children is a continuation of slavery. 1 in 9 black children in this country are in the Child and Family Services. That's slavery. Slavery, 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 slavery. Well, OG brother, if you're going to sue Monsanto, I want to introduce you to some people who are trying to sue behind the poisoning in East St. Louis. Most people don't know East St. Louis is the most poisonous place in America. Blacks in St. Louis and that area are the most poisoned people in the world. Black Hannah, if people recommend the book, you can send me one to donate so I can buy them. It's expensive buying these books. You have no idea, and you cannot get these with Amazon. The prices of books, in particular on blacks, I think have as much as quadrupled the cost. That's another way to keep you dumb, is that you can't afford to buy. But with that being said, all you folks, it's 10:10. I'm on you guys' time, so let me just open up and again welcome to the Angry Black Men's Book Club. This is the spring season. I thank God for being back. I thank God for my wonderful sister Valerie in Long Beach, California, diagnosing me as having anemia, and so I love my sisters, the good ones, you wazies out there. And thanks to her and the other people praying for me, I'm here. And this is our book. This is our book. This is our book. Again, The Tip of the Spear, Black Radicalism, Prison Repression, and the Long Attica Revolt. And I'm going to skip the acknowledgments unless you want me to. Do y'all want me to try? This is 230 pages. I will start with the introduction, and I think I'm going to try to do, I may do this like I did with, remember when we were talking about Shirley Chisler? Yeah, I know she was, and I saw that Shirley Chisler film. I won't get into that. Anyway, may God open the minds of my people. May my folks find strength when they hear all this bad stuff to stand up. We need God's intervention. These people want to destroy us all. I'm on the introduction. On August 18th, 1973, Queen Mother Audley Moore, stalwart communist and Pan-Africanist revolutionary, traveled to Green Haven Prison and delivered a remarkable keynote address. A video of the event shows how stylishly dressed black men, women, and children seated in rows of folding chairs, standing in small groups, eating, laughing, talking, and embracing. Were it not for the massive concrete walls encircling the gathering, one might easily mistake it for a typical picnic or celebration. However, the peaceful and bucolic scene belied the profound violence simmering just beneath the surface. The inaugural years of the 1970s were among the most explosive and lethal in U.S. prison history, due in no small measure to the militant rebellions that ruptured carceral institutions across the nation. The 2-year anniversary of Attica, the most infamous of these conflicts, was less than a month away. Hundreds of Attica brothers, incarcerated rebels who seized the prison and endured the state-orchestrated massacre that followed, had been transferred to Green Haven, and many now gathered to hear Moore speak. Standing before a modest podium, Moore explained that the Green Haven's imprisoned men were enduring recaptivity. Offering an analysis made popular by her political mentee, Malcolm X, she argued that prison walls made visible a condition of incarceration that is constitutive, wait a second, did I do that right? Constitutive, right, of Black American life, or Black life in America. Black people are a captive nation. The physically imprisoned had been therefore captured doubly so. More than explained that it was not the captives but the white man who was the real criminal. She reminded her audience comprised of people variously convicted of robbery, assault, rape, murder, and drug-related crimes that none of them had ever stolen entire countries, cultures, or people, or sold human beings into slavery for profit. Although some of them had tried to imitate the white man, she continued, they had never really stolen and neither had they really murdered. Have you taken mothers and strung them up by their heels, she asked. And you took your knives and slit their bellies so that their unborn babies could fall to the ground. Then you took your heel and crushed those babies into the ground. Have you dropped bombs on people and killed whole countries of people? Have you done that, brothers? Given that the American empire is constituted through the apocalyptic violence and incalculable theft, Moore argued that the crimes committed by the human spoils of war were necessarily derivative of the organized crime of the state. Moore explained that as a student of Marcus Garvey and a veteran of the Black liberation struggle since the 1930s, she had accumulated valuable insight into the science of white supremacy. With the horror of the Attica massacre fresh in the audience's mind, she told the appalling story of her grandfather's lynching, explaining that prisons function in tandem with other tactics of white patriarchal domination. The aim of the white man's science was to denature African people, to crush their spirits, destroy their cognitive autonomy, and transform them into obedient Negroes with no knowledge of their history or will to resist. Moore likened this process to the taming of lions, who can be caged and conditioned to purr like kittens at the crack of a whip. She concluded her address by enjoining the captive population, the formerly imprisoned as well as nominally free, to reject this oppressive science, to nurture a sovereign black consciousness, to embrace armed struggle, and to rely on each other for the battles that lay ahead. For only then would the captive nation be able to decisively liberate itself from the prisons ensnaring it. Queen Mother Moore's unconventional analysis unsettles common sense notions of crime, violence, imprisonment, the state, politics, science, temporality, and the idea of the human itself. Her narrative method dislodges these concepts from criminality, sociology, anthropology, and other liberal formations of knowledge, repurposing them for Black revolutionary ends. By theorizing Black prisons as recaptives and situating prisons within the longue durée. The longue durée is a concept from the communist, German communist school called the Frankfurt School. They were Jews. And the longue durée is their theory that revolutions happen out of a pattern, right? But often there's a repeated thing that hurts or angers people, and then there's one time too many over the long span of atrocities against the people that they explode. Michael Brown, you name it. There's a Rodney King. You can have a situation, Trayvon Martin, where these killings happen all the time, and then there's one that sets people off. That's where the longue durée, and ultimately they're talking about a revolution where the people get rid of a system. So when you hear longue durée of European colonialism, she forces a reckoning with nonlinear, fractured, and cyclical understandings of the historical movement. Her visceral rendering of the gendered racial violence disrupts the past and present, attempts to construct the Attica massacre, during which state actors slaughtered at least 39 people and sexually tortured hundreds more, as aberrational or exceptional. Rather, without ever mentioning it, she calls attention to the resonance between the recent spectacle of violence and the supposedly bygone regimes of chattel slavery, racial apartheid, and settler colonialism. Moreover, her arguments that the white man allegedly's objective science involves methods of taming Black rebellion is suggestive of concurrent efforts by CIA-affiliated behavioral psychologists, physicians, and others to neutralize political radicality by chemically, surgically, and electronically altering brain functions. Let me just stop and say to you, in the city of St. Louis, the United States Army dropped radioactive material on Black people in the projects in St. Louis to see how it damaged their brains. Nothing's really been done about it. Next time you hear something negative about Black people in St. Louis, you have no idea what they've done to the people there. It's disgusting. It truly is disgusting. It's in Baltimore, You hear about Baltimore and Detroit. When you hear these negative depictions of your people, you need to consider, in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, he's saying the same thing. Martin Luther King did an article and he said that black crime is derivative of white crime. And what that means in a sense is that if white folks hadn't done the big, wicked criminal things to black people, blacks wouldn't do much of the small things that white people bitch and complain about. Somebody say amen. Conveyed during a moment in which the struggle behind the walls was taking on a less combative posture, Moore's oratory challenged the state's authority to criminalize and incarcerate black communities while affirming the captives' rights, indeed their duty to struggle against the carceral world. These ideas, thematic concerns, and political imperatives prepare us for the narrative that follows. Tip of the Spear argues that prisons are war. They are state strategies of race war, class war, colonization, and counterinsurgency. But they are also domains of militant contestation where captive populations reject these white supremacist systems of power and invent zones of autonomy, freedom, and liberation. This book's major tasks are threefold. One, I analyze what I term as the Long Attica Revolt, a genealogy of black radical and revolutionary struggle that emerged among New York's captive population during the early 1970s. Two, I illuminate what I call prison pacification, a campaign of racist and political repression, white supremacist science, and organized violence advanced by a network of state actors variously located within penal hierarchies, police agencies, foreign theaters of war, counterinsurgency think tanks, universities, the FBI, and CIA. Three, I examine how the protracted collision of these projects gave rise to new formations of consciousness, politics, sociality, gender, and being, as well as new, which is so to say, renewed technologies of racial, colonial domination, dehumanization, and extraction. The war of which I write is fundamentally asymmetrical, not only in terms of each side's capacities and methods, but also in terms of their goals. Through prison pacification, state actors wage a war of conquest on a subject population as part of a broader effort to accumulate capital and preserve the dominance of the white man. Their mode of combat combines siege warfare and counterinsurgency warfare. Through siege warfare, an antagonist surrounds an enemy's fortifications and institutes blockades on the flow of resources and attempt to starve the surrounded population into submission. In this context, to starve must be understood capaciously as a calculated denial of material, social, cultural, and political nutrients necessary for the reproducing of defiant black life and consciousness across generations. Counterinsurgency, according to the U.S. Army, is a style of warfare that involves military, paramilitary, political, economic, psychological, and civic actions taken by the government to defeat insurgency. As will become clear, the planners and administrators of this carceral siege aimed to crush the revolt by deploying a range of techniques both hard and soft, across these terrains of intervention. In contrast to this carceral project, the Long Attica Revolt was not a war of conquest or accumulation. Against the carceral siege, revolting captives waged a people's war, a counterwar, or what exiled black revolutionary Robert F. Williams, and I have his book too, a guerrilla war of self-defense, popularly characterized as a war of the weak against the strong. Guerrilla warfare involves irregular small-scale attacks that aim to disrupt the social order, raising the cost of business as usual to a level that is unsustainable for the ruling authority, forcing them to relinquish control. Within and against captivity, rebels employed diverse methodologies of attack: political education, critique, protests, organizing, cultural production, litigation, subversion, refusal, rebellion, retaliation, hostage taking, sabotage, armed struggle, and the intimate labor of care. Like More, they saw prison walls not as boundaries between freedom and unfreedom, but as material demarcation of different intensities of captivity, vulnerability, and rebellion. Attica was, and is, a multiracial structure of revolt led by people who self identified as black. However, the blackness they claimed as much, if not more, a collective political designation as an individual identity. Through this rubric, black skin is insufficient for blackness, as Moore's derision for black-skinned Negroes makes clear. For decades, combatant theorists and politically engaged academics have conceptualized political blackness as a mode of consciousness emerging from the collective historical experience of oppression and struggle. Attica erupted out of this context, a historical moment in which people whose African ancestors were enslaved in what became known as Latin America increasingly embraced their African heritage. Moreover, conditions of extreme carceral duress coerced some imprisoned and destitute whites into black modalities of rebellion. Authority itself may be going down a fast track towards the niggerization of everyone, explained a white Attica survivor. Forged within cauldrons of racial, sexual, and class suppression, the long Attica revolt threatened the existence of prisons, the social order, and the very coherence of white man, a coercively universalized paradigm of human being. Contrary to most academic scholarship on prison-based movements and rebellions, tip of the spear, this centers the incarcerated people's formal demands to improve prison conditions. Through struggles over access to decent food, clothing, shelter, medical care, visitation privileges, humane parole policies, and so on, are important sites for political contestation. These appeals constitute the prison's movement's minimum demands, call for bare survival amid genocide. Investigations of prison insurgency tend to focus on this rational and pragmatic class of demands while ignoring, dismissing, or downplaying calls to tear down the walls and free all political prisoners as unrealistic, hyperbolic, immature, or too extreme. Moreover, as Dylan Rodriguez has shown, even these minimum standards, which tend to be articulated in the form of the petition to the state, are routinely analyzed in unsophisticated ways that circumscribe the horizon of incarcerated people's ambitions to a desire for full incorporation within existing regimes of citizenship, rights, and humanity. I'm not arguing against the common refrain that incarcerated people just want to be treated as human beings. In many cases, this is certainly true, but in others, it is a conception of the human itself that is seen as the problem. As the dominant way of interpreting anti-carceral struggle, the focus on external demands on the state narrows the scope of people's actual desires and facilitates the mystification of prison abolition's revolutionary and anti-colonial origins. The tip of the spear argues that the long Attica revolt was itself a demand uttered through what Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King famously termed the language of the unheard. This riot, this rebellion, this revolutionary upheaval was an internal demand to call to arms directed not towards the state, which did not have the capacity to comprehend or satiate the rebellion's most fulsome desires, but towards allied communities across the prison walls and beyond the United States territorial boundaries. The content of this maximum demand was the abolition of prisons, the abolition of war, the abolition of racial capitalism, the abolition of the white man, and the emergence of new modes of social life, not predicated on enclosure, extraction, domination, or dehumanization. And the pages that follow, I carefully excavate incarcerated people's protracted and often fatal struggles to realize their most unruly, unreasonable, and irrational demands. And doing so, I reframe our understanding of Attica and the Black Rebellion more broadly. At the end of our conversation, Che Nieves, the former Minister of Education for prison-based formation of the Young Lords Party and a veteran of the Attica Rebellion, articulated a version of the maximum demand with rare clarity. We had covered the highs and lows of his life struggle behind the bars, the relentless brutality of prison existence, the trajectory of his political radicalization, the ecstasy of achieving the rebellion's illegal freedom, and the unspeakable horrors of the massacre he survived. Like most of the interviews I conducted while researching this book, it was a heavy discussion that was filled with rage, tears, laughter, and the wonderment that surfaces when someone rediscovers a lost thread of memory that had lain dormant for decades. As we prepared to go our separate ways, I thanked Che for entrusting me with his memories and analysis. He responded, "Listen, all I could say is, we brothers, man, we need each other. It's not only me, but you. That's what keeps us going. Exchange, it keeps the spirit going. And it keeps us moving towards freedom. The more you acquire, the more I acquire. And without you, it's not me. You make me and I make you." Che's poetic reflection illuminates the abolitionist ethical philosophy at the core of the revolt. Though immediately triggered by carceral repression and violence, Attica signifies a positive demand that exceeds the normative frameworks of the political and challenges the hegemonic norms of individualism that are at the heart of capitalism, patriarchy, and white Western humanism. Decades before the term entered the popular lexicon, where it had been diluted and co opted, Attica rebels engaged in the praxis of abolition, generating abolitionist knowledge, theory, and practice amid conditions of carceral war. They not only imagined and dreamed of a world without prisons, but put their bodies and lives on the line to materialize their vision in the face of determined opposition. The shape of the world they began to build in the place of what they began to tear down was not predetermined. Rather, it was improvised through the unfolding of the revolt, a collective movement towards freedom. Theirs was a freedom that was not only material and political, but cognitive and metaphysical, a freedom nurtured within and between people who came to understand themselves as new kinds of beings for a new kind of world, of freedom that could not be granted, that could only be seized. The long Attica Revolt, in other words, is abolition. It is a paradigm and a blueprint, imperfect to be sure, but invaluable nonetheless for creating an abolitionist world. Che's assertion that the power of our principled brotherhood exceeds the sum of its own parts to another major theme of this book: manhood, masculinity, patriarchy, and gendered life under domestic warfare. Tip of the Spear focuses on the struggles enacted by people incarcerated in prisons designed for men who, and by and large, understood incarceration as a process that attacked their manhood and who engaged in rebellion as, as humanizing and indeed a masculinizing process. As such, it analyzes the complex ways in which the, that claim that claims to manhood are constructed, contested, and violently negated by the process of struggle, and shows that the content of manhood proclaimed by the rebels was radically different from that enacted by their captors. Across the years of learning with and from progressive, radical, and revolutionary black men who rebelled within and against racist and patriarchal state, I've learned that a gendered struggle, a struggle to redefine manhood itself, is to create an ethical and life-giving manhood, was and is indispensable to this revolt. Tip of the Spear is my response to an intergenerational assignment that Eddie Ellis, hold on, that that Eddie Ellis and others gave me nearly a decade ago. I met Ellis at a 2009 while facilitating a political education workshop with the Prison Moratorium Project, an organization he helped establish after spending 23 years behind the walls. I need some more water. Ooh. Thank you. I'll put that down there. Let me do that one more time. 23 years behind the walls. In 2014, when I began conducting research for what evolved into this book, I interviewed Eddie, hoping to learn about his life as a journalist for the magazine The Liberator, his role in the Harlem Black Panther Party, his experience in Attica during the rebellion, and his work as part of the Green Haven think tank, a prison-based formation whose research influenced multiple generations of activists, scholars, policymakers, often unacknowledged in unacknowledged ways. During our interview, which lasted upwards of 6 hours, Eddie shared his feelings that he and those with whom his community had failed to theorize, document, and contextualize the movements they led behind prison walls. Quote, "We have never been able to use the tools of academia to demonstrate that our analysis is a better analysis," close quotes, he said. Then he suggested perhaps I could play that role, that I make it my mission to use the resources of academic scholarship to rigorously elaborate a genealogy of knowledge and production that today remains largely criminalized, pathologized, and intentionally hidden from public view. It was a transformative interview in many ways, but unfortunately, it was our last. Ellis died of cancer shortly after that conversation. The argument and narratives that follow are the result of intensive research and institutional and personal archival collections combined with repeated, extended, and open-ended oral history interviews I conduct with more than 60 people, most of them Black, Latinx, men, and women, who participate in the radical social movements with and beyond prison between the 1960s and 1990s. As such, this work extends a legacy of anthropological research carried out in service of anti-colonial, liberatory, and abolitionist projects. It operationalizes scholar Michael Rolfe Trujillo's insight that non-academics are critical producers of historiography, that not only do such subjects engage in concrete struggle to transform material reality, they also strive to define the very terms under which some situations can be described. It also builds on the work of theorist Cedric Robinson, who shows us that to contend with Black radicalism on its own terms, we must unshackle our analytical frameworks from the cognitive prison of white Western rationality. I refuse to impose knowledge paradigms developed to justify the current social order upon movements that aim to unmake that order. Generated by deep and long-term relationships of trust, my analytical method takes the Black radical epistemologies, narratives, and modes of argumentation of those with whom I am in community as both a point of departure and lodestar. Moreover, it employs an ethnographic approach to historical narrative in which I, the reflexive authorial subject, remain present in the story, thinking and theorizing with the protagonists of the struggle to collectively scrutinize the meanings of key ideas, decisions, tensions, and events. It is this relationship of accountability to the intellectuals and combatants of this undeclared war, both living and dead, and to the ancestral traditions that nurtured them, that distinguishes this book from previous treatments of Attica and from the growing body of academic scholarship on black radicalism within and beyond prisons. The dominant understanding of Attica as a 4-day event that was confined to a single prison and primarily aimed to ameliorate oppressive conditions is facilitated by interpretive practices that prioritize knowledge yielded by state sources over knowledge produced and archived by rebels. In contrast to the imperatives of this counterinsurgent historiography, black radical ways of knowing constitute the primary sources of this study. To gather these sources, I have pursued, excavated, and analyzed the recollections, letters, treatises, manuals, journalism, testimony, and even the rumors, legends, and conspiracy theories generated by the people who understood themselves and were understood by the state to be revolutionaries. The long Attica Revolt names a protracted accumulation of rebellion that circulated within and beyond the New York prisons for at least 13 months prior to what ultimately culminated in the Attica prison between September 9th and 13th, 1971. Wait a minute. All of a sudden, my throat wants to clear. My God. Wow. Yuck. Sorry, guys. It's also there's some ink or something, dust in this book. When I turn the pages, it gets on my nerves. Okay. Again, so I said September 9th. By the way, that's the day my dad died. Wow. Whew. And my dad died, wow, 40 years to the day. Wow. As Trullo asserts, the historical narrative within which an actual event fits could precede that event itself, at least in theory, but perhaps also in practice. Indeed, the narrative practices of the people I spoke to troubled, coherent, linear, and bounded notions of the Attica Rebellion. Rather, these figures narrated their involvement in multiple rebellions, both large and small, some preceding the September Rebellion in Attica and others emerging in its wake, some confined to a single prison, others dispersed across multiple carceral sites, city jails, state prisons, mental institutions, and urban streets, foreign territories, and so on. From this perspective, Attica functions as a metonym for a temporally, geographically, and politically diverse structure of revolt, to which many roots and branches connect and extend in different, sometimes contradictory directions. So said Gary McGibbon, the imprisoned in the Green Haven when Attica erupted, who authored a poem claiming Attica as our heritage and our beginning. My decision to organize this book around the paradigm of war arose from listening to movement elders and taking what they had to say seriously. We are the tip of the spear, wrote Jalil Mudakim in a letter to me a year ago, a veteran of the Black Panther Party and Black Liberation Army who was in the early 80s accused of attempting to foment another Attica. Mudakim had been incarcerated for over 4 decades on a range of intensely politicized charges, including a conviction for the assassination of 2 New York City Police Department patrolmen back in 1971, a conviction that was facilitated by the FBI's anti-black counterintelligence program, aka COINTEL guys. I was captivated by the phrase, which is commonly used in the military parlance to refer to combat forces deployed to penetrate an enemy's first line of defense. Initially, I interpreted it as a reference to the leading role that politicized prisoners had played in challenging the state. That is, I interpret the statement as a historical claim. It later occurred to me that in using this martial idiom, Mudakim could also have been pointing out the location of incarcerated people behind enemy lines, such that their effective organization could catalyze movements beyond the walls. In other words, maybe he was deploying This phrase, as a tactician, much like Frantz Fanon was when he wrote, "It is among the masses, these masses, in the people of the shanty towns and in the lumpen proletariat that the insurrection will find its urban spearhead." However, there is a more chilling possibility. The war paradigm means that it has been possible to interpret Mudakim's statement from the point of view of the state, which would make incarcerated people, especially incarcerated black revolutionaries, the tip of the counterinsurgency spear that had been pierced through the front lines of its opposition on its way to striking a more essential target, us. Translation, there's a war against all of us. The Negroes in lockup are on the front lines. As the story of war, the tip of the spear, mobilizes these various interpretations of the term, analyzing the cutting edge of the carceral struggle as seen from both sides of the blade. Quote, as soon as all of this became clear to me and I developed the nerve to admit it to myself that we were defeated in the war and we were now captive slaves, or actually that we inherited a neo-slave existence, I immediately became relaxed, always expecting the worst, and started working on a remedy, close quote. George Jackson offered this reflection from the Soledad prison in a 1967 letter to his mother. 6 years earlier, an 18-year-old Jackson had been given an indeterminate sentence of 1 year to life for robbing a gas station at gunpoint. It was behind the walls of the California prison system, where racism was in its pure state, gathering its forces, pulsing with power, ready to spring, that Jackson mutated into a revolutionary. Wow, it's dusty down here. Okay, revolutionary. Where am I? He studied martial arts, read voraciously, co-organized underground formations of resistance, and became Field Marshal of the Black Panther Party, wrote incisively and prodigiously, and engaged in physical combat against the state. Jackson's insight about the relationship between prisons, war, and slavery is a useful point from which to begin our examination of carceral war. Dominant understandings of prisons as neo-slavery are typically grounded in the critical interpretations of U.S. jurisprudence. For activist scholars and politically engaged academics, two primary sources have been particularly influential: the exception clause of the 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which abolished slavery and involuntary servitude except as punishment for a crime, and Ruffin versus the Commonwealth, the 1871 case in which the Virginia Supreme Court declared incarcerated people slaves of the state. I'm sympathetic to the newest neo-slavery arguments that cite these sources, particularly when slavery is understood as violent relation of domination that often involves but does not require the exploitation of labor for profit. I myself was politicized to this mode of historical narration that compelled me to embrace abolition as the only ethical response to slavery. However, as I researched this book, I became increasingly critical of this approach, not of the neo-slavery analytic per se, but how it is alleged that the basis in law is endlessly deployed as though slavery exists because the law allows it to. George Jackson's assertion that black people are captives and slaves, not because of law, but because we're prisoners of war, we're historical prisoners of war, invokes a paradigmatic, okay, I did it right, I'm sorry. He uses lots of huge words. Nobody's going to read. Average people are not. I understand that these are, I know how to pronounce these, don't get me wrong. I'm not mad at dude. Let me just tell you what I'm getting from this intro. This book was written to prove something, not that he's bad, but you have to use all of this asinine, puffed up language to get a point to white folks that you know what you're talking about. Because when you see all this in theory and you throw all these French people in there, I went to this whole it's amazing. White folk, when they want to write a book, they just write. When black people need to say something, they have to do all of this to prove I'm smart so I can say something. Understand that. Because come on, guys, there's been a whole lot of $50 words here. Not that I have an issue. I just wouldn't. Yeah, I've got a filter. Maybe I should bring my filter in here. You want me to get my filter? Let me get my filter. I need to get my filter. Plus, my cat was down here. Let me get a filter. Give me 1 second. Let me get my filter. You're right. Something's triggering my One second. Where is it? I'll put it right here. Okay. I put my filter on. I put the ozone machine on. Whew. Whew. Yeah, I think selfish. There's a bunch of selfish. I need to put the ozone thing in here and kill whatever selfish has on. 'Cause something was like tripping my throat out. I was like, what's going on? Okay. Okay. How do you guys like this so far? And I'm sorry about all the language. When you are in the academy, they demand all of these difficult stuff. Otherwise, you're not smart. Where are your manners, Sean? A rude individual. I don't know who you are, but I don't want you. Somebody want me to get a wife? Give me the money to take care of her. Don't ask me otherwise. That's rude as hell. I'm serious. That's rude as hell. I repeat, and I'll say this to everybody out there that's single. For all the people that mouth off at you, if they ask you why you're not married, first and foremost, you're going to help me get a house. You're going to make certain I have the income to take care of an additional person. You're going to make certain I have legal protection in case that person wants to get a divorce. And, right? Rude people. And it's none of their business. And you know what? Probably a fruit booty. I don't sit up worrying about who is and isn't married. That's a fruit booty question. You probably got something too. I'm glad I don't know you. Let the church say amen. Now, I was saying George Jackson, and I'm going to go back. George Jackson's assertion that black people are captives and slaves not because of law, but because we're historical prisoners of war, invokes a paradigmatic rationale for slavery. This rationale is embedded within the classical liberal theory, the philosophical substrate of the capitalist social relations. Against the dominant understandings of liberalism as a political order that expands peace, political philosopher Mark Neocleus argues that liberalism is a self-conscious doctrine of war exercised in a permanent fashion against rebellious slaves, antagonistic Indians, wayward workers, and of course the criminal more broadly defined. Analyzing the thought of classical liberals like John Locke and investor in the Royal African Company, he finds that claims about the liberal state's power to punish are drawn from the international theories of law in which captives are beasts who have declared war on the state and slavery, an appropriate response to criminality. Decades before the 13th Amendment and Ruffin v. Commonwealth, the so-called Antelope case of 1825 enshrined the link between war and slavery in U.S. jurisprudence, deciding on the legitimacy of the transatlantic slave trade, which had already been formally outlawed. Supreme Court Justice John Marshall, a slave owner, wrote that it was universally accepted that the victor might enslave the vanquished, and that slavery is a legitimate result of force. Let me just stop and say, the only thing that's going to stop your or my enslavement has to be a counterforce, whatever that's going to be. The, quote, the state of things which is thus produced by general consent cannot be pronounced as unlawful, he continued. So since we kick niggas' asses, they can't be free. And that's basically the attitude you deal with reparations and everything else, people. Everything else is that we beat your asses, we stomped you, and we'll help illegals and everybody, but we beat you guys' asses, and we don't have to do anything. No matter what, we can poison you, take your kids. This is the way it is. And I want to say, black men, this is why he's talking about manhood. I want to just make this comment. Black youth will open up an automatic weapon and shoot people at a party over beef. But a killer racist cop is more safe than every black person in America. There's something fundamentally wrong with us. That there's so much smoke and bloodthirstiness for the smallest thing amongst one another. But people who truly hurt us have total impunity. It's amazing. I'm going to compare us to Palestinians. If you just have to die and you can't take it anymore, wouldn't it make more sense to take a shot at Mark Furman than to shoot a black granny who's not trying to hurt nobody? Why are we so goddamn cowardly and weak? And I'm not encouraging violence. I'm only saying, my God, if you just had to be violent, you're going to go out. Why would it have to be? Why would it have to be that you would hurt someone that's not even fighting you, but someone that would beat you up, crack your skull, shoot you, or shot other people, dog people in the neighborhood for years, would never feel any retaliation under any circumstance? That doesn't happen to any other community, not even Latinos. Why? The law enforcement people know they would fight back. And I'm not encouraging anyone to do anything. I just want you to understand that the absence of manhood The absence of manhood is hurting us. The absence of manhood is hurting us. And by the way, the absence of womanhood, now we've got a gender gap, a femininity gap. We've got to like pull that together. Now let me keep going. So here it is. The state of things which is thus produced by general consent cannot be pronounced unlawful, he continued. So since we beat up everybody, we have the right to do whatever we want to do to these people who we've beaten. That in reality is why we're in the situation that these people have no desire other than you're going to have to make me respect you. You're going to have to take it. You can't march it. You can't love it. You can't pray it. This is at least the mindset of certain people. Please understand that that is very strong. That didn't go anywhere. Let me continue. The Antelope case established the sanctity of property over the supposed natural right of liberty and shows how the basis of neo-slavery lies in war. Lies in war, not law. What have black folk been doing the last few hundred years? Hey, Star, I need you to moderate on this thread. Could you, sister? I thank you. Please moderate and moderate effectively. I trust you. Yeah, moderate. I don't disrespect folks, and I'm not going to be disrespected. Okay. It's better. Okay, at least I'm not gagging. Again, the Antelope case established the sanctity of property over the supposed natural right of liberty and shows how the basis of neo-slavery lies in war, not law. Again, the relationship that these people have with us is a never-ending, from the 1520s to today, a war against us, whether we like it or not, whether we want to fight or not, whether we are loving or not, whether we're peaceful or not. There is a war against us, a declared war, and in reality, maybe these prisoners get it better than the people outside of the jails, right? The bushy people, right? People think being a rich-ass slave is free. No, a rich-ass slave like Diddy, or a rich-ass slave like a lot of people who have money. Oprah is a rich-ass slave. Let her make one step. Let her do one thing and see how quickly Oprah Winfrey can be reduced to the level of any common black criminal. Let her do one thing. Let Michael Jordan, let any of these people, no matter how rich they are, do one thing, and how quickly that rich-ass slave will be treated just as much as Larry Hoover or one of these other black gang leaders. Just like that. Okay, let me keep going. Rather, the political and economic elites weaponize law. Weaponize law. Like Joe Biden, you guys voted for him. He weaponized law. Clinton weaponized law. Obama weaponized law. Johnson and Nixon and everybody else weaponized law. Weaponized law is a continuation of war by other means. Full spectrum war. So it's an economic war, a cultural war. Sometimes I shoot. Sometimes I just won't give anybody a job. Sometimes I poison. Sometimes I rape. Sometimes I take your kid out your home. Sometimes I molest your kid. Sometimes the teacher tells your child to change your sex. Ultimately, or maybe you get your kids aborted, or maybe there's fluoride in the water, or maybe I push all the bad food in your neighborhood, or there's no food in your neighborhood, or we change the Section 8 policies where we give more money to the illegals to throw us into the street, or you can't get credit to buy a house, but other people can. This is a whole full spectrum attack on all of us, whether we've been locked up, whether we have good credit scores, whether we're light-skinned, whether we're good Catholics, whether we're boule, whether we're LGBTQ, with being penetrated or marching on the carpet of some ugly-looking macho stud white broad, there's an attack on you, says what this author is implying. Enslaved Africans argued that slavery is war. Quote, when you make men slaves, close quote, wrote Ulada Equiano in 1789, you compel them to live with you in a state of war. Critically, however, slavery represents a particular moment in the life and death cycle of war, a moment in which one antagonist has imposed their will with near totality upon the other. I say near because regimes of domination are never total. Although these coons and a lot of weak black folks act like this, just the point is to resist. We should just complete, they got everything. That's called defeatism. And the military, I'll just tell you, if you say you can't win, they will take you and shoot you. We're the only people that celebrate defeatists as smart, as people who are very strategic, that know how to get things done. It's sad. Maybe tactically, but not as a permanent thing. So anyway, it's never, okay, near totality. I say near because regimes of domination are never total, riddled as they are with contradictions, fissures, vulnerabilities, and what fugitive slave Harriet Jacobs called loopholes of retreat. Antebellum plantocracy lived in constant fear of rebellion, a term and that etymology, why? Etymology, oh wow. Not that I can't pronounce it. These adverbs are blowing my mind. Entomologically, no. Entomologically. Okay, all right. Wow. I've never seen anyone make an adverb out of that. Okay. Etymologically means the renewal of war. To rebel is to repudiate the master-slave relation and inaugurate new movements towards freedom, to create ruptures and breaches through which repressed ways of knowing, being overrun, violently impose boundaries. This is why throughout the Western Hemisphere, self-organized formations of black rebellion, maroon resistance, general strikes, slave insurrections, urban rebellions, prison revolts often take on an overtly martial character. In other words, when people get tired, they go out and they fight because in reality, it's an open state of conflict. The conflict comes into the open. Prison pacification names a historically specific articulation of this permanent war, one that was forged amid tectonic shifts in U.S. political economy during the second half of the 20th century. I'm giving someone time out so you can take the time to read the title. I took the time to put the book up here. If you don't see the tip of the spear, if you're not paying attention, forgive me, it's kind of stupid to ask me once I've started it. It was listed everywhere in the announcements. A lot of our people don't like reading. We think we're very smart, but some of the most basic things we don't read. It doesn't take you 10 words to read what the title of the book was. If folks are coming on time, it would have been there. Well, but you got the announcement. I took the time to type it. Read what the announcement tells you. Don't ask me what I'm reading. I wouldn't do it to you. I would be looking to say, what is it that they put out? We have to have discipline and trained minds, and being late isn't an excuse. Being late isn't an excuse. Everybody can see this. I put it out there. I don't hide it. I don't hide information from people. Some of you that didn't go to the universities, Y'all hadn't had teachers that just deliberately tried to mess over you because you were black, to make you look stupid, even if you had your stuff together. Some of our people have never, ever been in environments where you had to really use your noodle. Okay, it shouldn't be recreational. Part of what this man's trying to say in this book is that the people that are in lockup are using their minds more aggressively to struggle for freedom than the folks who have the leisure outside of the prison system. People are reading, they have to, they're confronted. A lot of our folks are flaccid. Uh, it would be very easy. So there were announcements, YouTube, send them out, Instagram. I said it everywhere. I'm not hiding what I'm talking about. I know folks who play those games, people who mention and they'll read and you figure out where it came from. So all people have to do is read. Okay, I'm not going to respond anymore. I don't mind if your feelings are not pleasant. I'm not hiding. I I know difficult people who are arrogant with their degrees and all that don't want you to know anything. Or they say it one time, they go real fast. In fact, people respect the asinine academic people. People can listen. We were going to continue. So, yes, let's listen. Hell, it's free. The main people that ask the questions are the main ones that never contribute. It's a very interesting thing about our people, but that's okay. I'm going to keep doing this. So, again, prison pacification names a historically specific articulation of this permanent war, one that was forged amid tectonic shifts in the U.S. political economy during the second half of the 20th century. Black radical intellectuals like James Boggs understood that something drastic was coming. In 1963, this Detroit auto worker saw that technological changes in industrial production, computerization, automation, and offshoring were ensuring that more and more workers would find themselves without meaningful ways to make a living. For Boggs, this raised a critical question that would only intensify as the years wore on. What would happen to those whose labor was no longer needed by the capitalist system? In her 2007 book, Golden Gulag, abolitionist geographer Ruth Wilson Gilmore offers an answer. She shows that the beginnings in the 1970s, state actors and bourgeois elites pursued the prison fix as a solution to the compounding crises of capitalism. They usurped state capacity that could have been used to expand the social wage instead of deploying it to criminalize and cage what were deemed surplus populations. Translation, lock up black people because they're trash. They don't need us anymore. There's no need for niggers. Let's do jails. And yes, the omnibus crime bill, one of the first was 1967 because of the riots in Detroit, Newark, and right? These jails and all of this and the dope, all of it's interconnected. It's warfare against us. The social wage means the government had the option. And instead of spending the money on jails, they could have invested in the people, but they'd prefer jails to housing, to training, to letting people retire at 50 or letting them retire at 55. Now people working till they're 80. I mean, it's all of these things, but to steal all the money, which is what we're dealing with. As Gilmore explained, this move amounted to the abandonment of one set of public mandates in favor of another, of social welfare for domestic warfare, if you will. The tip of the spear zeroes in on the political dimensions of this war, which began in the so-called free world, then erupted through the prison walls. In July of 1964, 4 months after New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller passed the nation's first stop and frisk law, empowering the police to question or detain anyone reasonably suspected of criminalized activity. A rebellion erupted on the streets of Harlem and Brooklyn, sparked by a lethal act of racist police violence. It was among the first of hundreds of urban uprisings that shook U.S. cities between 1964 and 1972. Inspired by anti-colonial struggles sweeping Asia, Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean, black radicals in the United States sought to harness this energy into an organized force for overturning the status quo. In doing so, the framework of the civil rights was increasingly supplanted by revolutionary nationalism, the idea that black and other racially oppressed groups in the United States constituted domestic colonies, and that national liberation and socialist revolution were the correct path forward. Although the strategy of nonviolence was never as hegemonic as anointed histories of black struggle make it out to be, revolutionary, in other words, Martin Luther King and all of them didn't have all the play. They weren't the only game in town. Hegemony means all of this was controlled by these preachers that couldn't keep their clothes on, that didn't mind getting beaten and water hosed. That's not the full story. I had a book, We Will Shoot Back. Maybe I'll read some of that again. Okay. The revolutionary nationalist formations positioned self-defense and armed struggle as central to their praxis. Praxis is the $10 word for practice. But you have to use that. When you're in the university, you use all these words that other people... See, I'm smart. I use all these words. I'm not saying, dude, this is smart. I like it. Just saying, for you listening, if this... Anyway. But some of us need dictionaries. The people in jail learn to read with the dictionary. Those of us that know how to read need to make certain that we know, and you can always look these words up in Google. As a Black Panther Party co-founder Huey P. Newton wrote in 1967, listen to this, an unarmed people are slaves or subject to slavery at any given moment. Which community is calling for gun buybacks? A constellation of repressive state agencies responded to these developments through counterinsurgency strategies. Counterinsurgency, if I can make it simple, is basically white state backlash against black people. Okay? Counterinsurgency strategies developed in the global laboratories of empire. Local police red squads. Let me explain. I have a book. Where is it? It's right here. No, I have two of them. No, this isn't it. Hold on one second. I may as well show y'all while I'm sitting here. This is one of them. Red Scare, Racism, and Cold War Black Radicalism. They always said that when black people were fighting, here's the book I'm looking for. They always said that black folks fighting back were being inspired by, and this is another one, Black Scare, Red Scare. There's always been this idea that the black struggle in America was caused by communists. People from Russia and China and Cuba are making us not liking police cracking our heads open, or being forced to sit on the back of the bus, or not being able to piss downtown. I need someone in Moscow to tell me that that doesn't make any sense. These are two of the other books. I told you I've been hoarding up stuff for this book club. These are two, but we'll do that another time. Remember, there's this thing called the Red Squads. The Red Squads basically started in 1919, 1920, where United States Attorney General Palmer, after his house got bombed in D.C. and other stuff was going on, there was a bombing on Wall Street that killed a bunch of people. They started rounding up everybody that they thought was subversive or communist, and they always made it such that black people are being used. All of this is, blacks are just dupes. We're just here to be used by Eastern European Jews and Slavs. They're the ones that make us want to stand up, and black people are the dupes of other people instead of the fact that we have a real grievance with the system. So they had red squads, and they also had something called Black Desk. The Black Desk was a department within your major police centers where they spied on. There's an active surveillance and harassment of everybody black in cities like New York, Detroit, Chicago, D.C., and they often work with, of course, community groups like the ADL to spy on black people. So red squads. And they had a thing in New York. It's called the Bureau of Special Services, also nicknamed Bossy. Bossy had a role in Malcolm X's assassination and the killing of other black people. Okay. Yes, GCPs. Yes. Think about it. The New York, of course, is going to have some GCPs. And they're GCPs in the Communist Party. And the Communist Party was heavily infiltrated. And one of the main things that they did was deal with preventing black people in particular. And there was an effort exactly 100 years ago. There was a meeting in Russia, in the former Soviet Union. It's called the Communist International Comintern, where they were saying that they were going to help black people get 5 states in the South: Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina would be the Negro nation that the communists were supposed to help black people take as a means to use blacks as the how can I say, the advance guard of the communist revolution. So on one hand, the communists did want to use black people. They don't love us. Nobody loves us, and we better start loving ourselves. So here it is. Again, like the Bureau of Special Services and Investigation in New York hunted radicals under the pretext of law enforcement. So in other words, if you supported good schools, you would be spied on. You're dangerous because you think that black folks should have sewers and their poop shouldn't be in the street. We need to watch you. Why do you need toilets? Just don't blame me. I'm just trying to explain to you what he's saying. In August of 1967, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, who, by the way, was a quadroon homosexual, which means he's a black gay, a black LGBTQ who helped destroy black people. Nothing's changed. Y'all still doing the fruit booty black people, some of the biggest traitors we got out here. Everywhere. Yes, you are. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover launched the Black Nationalist hate groups. If you recall, in 2017, they had the Black Identity Extremist Project that they tried to launch through the same Department of Justice under Jeff Sessions of Alabama. I just want to tell you, I got in trouble with Jeff Sessions because I said on international television that Jeff Sessions was a white identity extremist because you harass blacks by day, but he had a black boyfriend that lived in Birmingham. They took my phone off, my Skype, all this stuff happened. But yes, I did. I ratted him out. I mean, this stuff, it's not stopped. That's 2017. So that's literally, and that's 1967. So that's, wow. Like 40 years later, they're still on this mess, guys. It's not stopped. Project collected under COINTELCOUNTERPRO that infamously deployed a range of illegal methods to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, and otherwise neutralize, which also means kill the activities of black radical organizations in general. And black radicals could be unions, teachers, preachers, people that want the trash collected. That's radical. Black people that want anything other than to just be pissed and shitted on are radical. Days later, okay, radical organizations in general and the Black Panther Party in particular, I need you guys to understand how deep this situation is. The Black Panther Party was infiltrated before they had 5 members. There were thousands, and there continue to be thousands and thousands of black people who are agents of repression and betrayal in our community. They're in civil rights groups, they're pastors. In fact, the boule, the black elite, many of them, consciously work to keep us down as long as they're rich-ass slaves. This is part of our dilemma, is that we have traitors. Like they talked about contradictions and all amongst the people that held people down. Our contradiction is that everybody doesn't get it and doesn't want to get it. Or at least they don't want us to get what we should have. Sort of like the Chicago Teachers Union, where you have all these black principals and the kids can't read across the country, and it's AKAs and deltas that run the education in the schools. I said it just like that, damn sure did. Our HBCUs underperform, and it's dominated by the boule. Did you know that the boule has the CIA recruiting at schools like Howard? I'm just saying to you. Actually, I'm going to say, I got mine, and I'm not going to help you get yours. It's a more honest answer, sister. They don't mean you better get yours. They'll do things to keep you from getting yours. The same black Congressional Black Caucus and National Congress of Black Churches and all these black organizations are supporting the illegals getting guaranteed income, housing vouchers, and everything, as black people are almost half or more of the unemployed, homeless people in this country. I'm saying homeless. We're half of the mentally ill, and we're half of the people in prison. And yet these people are getting jobs and everything. These are black people for others. And you need to know that people in the boule worked with J. Edgar Hoover. Oh, yes, they did. Even Thurgood Marshall, who was Greek, worked with J. Edgar Hoover. Roy Wilkins, head of the NAACP, was a snitch for J. Edgar Hoover, snitching on Dr. King. Oh, yes, these people, and sometimes the Masons, these people all work with the system. Our community, the reason we don't make any advances is that everybody that most of the people we look up to are in league with our oppression. You almost never see any prominent black person that is truly for black people. And I don't care if they're a religious leader, I don't care. And even some of the ones that we consider good, I'll just say, Jesse Jackson was on the scene when Dr. King got killed. He was on the scene when Whitney Young got killed. I'm not picking, but there's another living black religious leader. And I'm thinking of at least 2 prominent black religious figures who were killed. And there may be more. I'm just going to leave. I'm not saying because folks get all worked up and because we're not a principled people. We're not an ethical people. So the same way the brother made the film, I think on Netflix, and he was talking about the assassination of Malcolm X, and the Muslims in Newark was saying, so what? Yeah, well, yeah, it happened. John Ali an FBI snitch, an agent within the Nation of Islam, had something to do with Malcolm X getting killed. He's honored at Savior's Day. I don't run Savior's Day, but someone does. Isn't that strange? A known FBI agent can be welcome at Savior's Day. Doesn't that say something? All you black Muslims out there, and by the way, I know a lot of black Muslims, they hate the hell out of Malcolm X. Yes, they do. That's a contradiction. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. And many of the people that we look up to that are leaders, either they did it in the grad chapter or they're honorary members of the Boule, or they did it as undergrads, or they're Prince Hall Masons, or they're in the white Masonic thing, and of course, Masons are brothers. Okay, I don't keep many friends. I'm not trying to be friends, but anyway, God. Anyway, days later, the CIA inaugurated Operation Chaos, a lesser-known initiative aimed to sever links between social movements in the United States and those abroad. Having recently declared a war on crime, President Johnson established the Law Enforcement Assistance Administration in 1968. This is behind the omnibus crime bill that he passed, I believe, the year before, modeled after the Office on Public Safety, a CIA-connected unit within the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID. There's some of the people pushing LGBTQ and eugenics, which means population reduction and control in Africa. They even have an office on population to make certain that there are not too many black Americans or too many people in Africa. This is in the U.S. government right now. An office on population. You wonder why they make it so hard. People ask why you're married. Have you ever been black and tried to find a job as a black man or even tried to start a business? This is done on purpose to make it difficult for you to have an income so our population can't grow. I absolutely love women and I love children too. Do you really think if things were optimum for me financially, that I wouldn't have a house full of kids? And it's not just me. 50% of the black men in this country that are above the age of 30 are single. Okay, now I'm going to post this up here, and I'm going to read it. I didn't say this, so I don't want no pipe squad from the Nation of Islam to come and threaten my life. But this brother who's in California wrote, I used to be in the Fruit of Islam, Nation of Islam. This is why I left the Nation of Islam, because I had figured out that there were spies in the NOI. I'm simply going to respond to that by saying, my god brother is one of the founders of The Final Call, one of the early editors. He claims that he nearly had his life taken because he got the bad nickname within the Nation of Islam as Malcolm. My inference from that is if you get called Malcolm and the Nation of Islam, they're telling you that they may take your ass out. I'm not saying that's what it is, but some really bad things happen to his car, like the wheels and all came off, and they worked on the car. Don't blame me. I'm not casting aspersion on the righteous people in any of your groups, but I'll give you one more story. The late head of the metropolitan section of the Washington Post, Dr. Vincent E. Reed, the former superintendent of schools in Washington, shared a story with me that when he would go to see the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he was confronted by a friend who said, have you lost your damn mind? And he says, what? He says, why are you effing with the Muslims? He says, how do you know? He says, man, I saw video They had film of you going in and out, meaning that there were people in the Nation of Islam or pretending to be in the Nation of Islam who are spies, who are infiltrators. I'm not criticizing the sincere people within the Nation of Islam, but the Black Panthers were infiltrated. Dr. King was infiltrated. Garvey was infiltrated. The Black Liberation Army was infiltrated. Why can't the nation be infiltrated? Oh my. Um, Let me just help this person. There's some, I'm going to just say this. I don't waste a lot of time attacking any particular ethnic group of people. However, if you happen to be Khazarian, you're not the focus of our discussions. If you come in, if you say anything, I'm blocking you because you got everything you need. You got an atomic bomb. You even have a country that isn't really yours in terms of biology or history. So why not pass over this group? That's right, pass over and take the flatbread with you. We don't need your presence. I don't go and spy on people. I don't crash Hanukkah, and I don't crash Purim, and I don't crash anybody else's space. So, take your Khazarian ass somewhere else and thank and praise God that we're all not like rooting like 199%, which we're going to take care of our own issues. But, if you're going to worry about something, worry about those Palestinians that you can't control. Worry about the fact that you can't beat them after almost 8 months of waging a war of genocide and you can't win. Y'all are too busy. And I will say this, and everybody knows I have Hebrew ancestry, real Hebrew, not this. I even have the fake stuff from Russia too. But I have the real stuff, right, from the Levant, right, like a lot of us do. And the imposter converts, I could care less about them trying to get in the way of us getting our business solved. That's another problem that we have. And we need to learn how to tell people, get out of our business. And we need to tell Black folks, if you've got to sleep with someone, then you be with them. You are what you sleep. Stay out of our affairs. If you've got to lay up with another group of people, be with them. And if they dog you, don't come back to us. If we weren't good enough for you to be around, we shouldn't be good enough when they reject you for you to come back. I'd like for everybody that hates being a foundational Black American to get the hell out of our community. Go away. We don't want you. Jump off of a building. Commit suicide. Do something. But leave us be. And you will not be accepted by anyone else. And good luck with that. In fact, you're a masochist. Accept the abuse and leave us alone. I'm really sick and tired of people who are ungrateful to God and hate themselves and hate our ancestors and then come up in these spaces. Go over to the Klan meeting. Go swim. Go by the lake like that doctor in Louisiana that wants white friends so badly. Do us a favor. In fact, no one likes a Judas. Self-hating Black people, everybody hates you. And you know what, self-hating Black folks, traitors? The day is coming where Black people, foundational Black, will hate traitors. You guys are going to have meltdowns. That time is close at hand. The same way the system has to change, when the system has to change, they no longer need you. Sellout sisters, they're getting rid of all the diversity, equity, and inclusion jobs. They don't need you. You've basically destroyed the Black family. We've killed 20, 25 million babies. We've ruined the Black family, where Sexy Red has gonorrhea green and pussy pink lipstick. This is what's happened with all you sellout, no good, stud pork chop feminists. You useless trash. And all the simps who'll do anything to be laid up with someone as long as they don't have to man up and be a father. And haven't found a hole that they wouldn't penetrate even if it had STD inside of it. You guys are going to be turned on. Don't worry, it won't be people like me that are patient. I'm old Negro anyway. But the younger folks, when they find out what you really are, and I will say to you, I remember when black was beautiful. There used to be a point, late 60s, early 70s, a coon would get their ass beat. And nobody would help them because they felt they deserved it because they betrayed the group. I don't advocate it, but you know what? It was very effective. Just think about that. What if people decide that they want to be effective? Don't get mad at me. I'm not putting my hands on nobody. But I want you to be clear. Judgment's coming. Now, let me keep reading. I want to get out this introduction. Introductions, how many more pages? It's a long-ass introduction. I've got 6 more pages, so let me get through the introduction, and then we can read the stories without all of this complex theoretical language. I mean, he uses so many. Before you catch your breath, there's another one. All right. I was saying Operation Chaos. All right. Having recently declared a war on crime, aka a war on blacks, President Johnson, who we were lied to and told was a friend of the Negro, that's my commentary. Okay, and let me see. Model after the Office of Public Safety, a CIA connected unit within the, U.S. Department of International Development, whose mission was to combat the global communist revolution. Let me add that USAID worked with the Office on Population under a guy named Ravenholt. And Johnson, starting in 1965, they began to fund abortion and bad birth control and stuff that would mess up women all over Africa and Asia. Not giving these countries real development aid, but the means to sterilize and mess up their women. The same thing they do here to black women who are told killing babies and messing up their plumbing is freedom and health care. God. Add the weave and the other stuff and the obesity, and it's a disaster, but let me just keep that to myself. The global communist revolution, I just want to say, they felt would be fought by wiping out a quarter to a third of black and other babies of color through bad birth control. Same thing they've done here, except they've been more successful in America. We've killed 60% of our children the last 50 years. The Law Enforcement Assistance Administration bolstered the repressive capacity of domestic warfare state by dispensing block grants and technical assistance to law enforcement agencies and by working alongside the Office of Public Safety to facilitate the repatriation of counterinsurgency expertise. Let me translate. The CIA secret wars and America's open wars in Latin America and Asia, all those techniques were brought back and put against black people in America, starting with Johnson, the friend of the Negro, the Democrat, and all y'all keep voting blind Democrat. Nobody loves us except for God and those who truly love us amongst us. Let me do this one more time, but it's better. Thank you for that air purifier idea. One of the unforeseen consequences of this state strategy of repression was that it transformed prisons into key sites of this domestic war and a primary zone of militant black resistance through what activist Stephen Wilson calls the imprisoned black radical tradition. In addition to assassinating political activists and facilitating internecine conflict, in other words, black on black violence and killing between black radical groups, partisans of this carceral warfare project deployed agent provocateurs, these are snitch traitors, trolls, backstabbers, nigglings, or as I call them, blacknecks, coons, political frame-ups, and excessive bail to imprison activists they deemed threatening, thereby removing them from circulation. This happened to Mutulu Shakur, who died last year in jail for a crime he didn't commit. However, this use of incarceration to solve the problem of urban rebellion created the conditions for a new problem, carceral rebellion. So the rebellion went from the neighborhood, from the hood, to the jails. It can scarcely be a coincidence that massive uptick in prison rebellions emerged amid the state's intensified campaign to criminalize black resistance. Black resistance is another word for black men. Extending the trajectory that emerged in urban zones, prison rebellions proliferated. In Ohio in 1968, Minnesota and New Jersey in 1969, New York City and upstate New York in 1970, and California and Western New York in 1971. According to one study, 48 prisons erupted in 1972, the most in a single year in U.S. history up to that point. I need to bring to your attention that when Joe Biden won the election in 2020, or so we were told, all the prisons in the country were put under lockdown. As much as you hate Donald Trump, the black prisoners preferred Trump to Biden, and the prisons were locked down because the people recognized with Biden as the one who's one of the main people that had black people locked up. Trump was the last chance, and certain people had to get out of jail, as flawed as Trump may be to some of you. The black prisoners have been increasingly repressed. All the programs to help prisoners were shut down with Biden, and a lot of your dumbasses are going to vote for Biden blindly. I didn't say love Trump, but why is it the brothers in the worst situation in the country for Trump and folks outside who can't keep food in their damn refrigerator or keep their gas tank full or pay their bills want to vote for this bastard who raped his own daughter? It's now a matter of a public record. In particular, sorry-ass black women, why are you hoes going to vote for a predator that would rape his own daughter? If you're mad at R. Kelly, how could you love Joe Biden? Is it because white men are better when they rape children? Are y'all that, forgive me, fucked up in your brains that you hate black men so much white male predators are good and black predators are evil, which they are? Shouldn't white predators be evil too? And what he's not talking about is another part of the repression that this guy's not going to put in his book, is that they funded feminism is a government project to destroy black people. And they've used you black women to destroy your own people. Isn't it interesting, all this woman empowerment, all this stuff for women, jails for men, colleges for females? They never talk about men's health care, but they do talk about abortion. They don't even offer vasectomies to black men. Sisters, there's a war against you too. but it's different. It's a soft war. And there are a lot of miserable, lonely, unhappy black women who can't figure out what's going on. They think it's black men. They love the white men. They love the white men. And these guys have messed up, black men. They've messed you up and got you loving them to the point where when black women start getting chopped up and thrown into Lake Michigan and thrown into rivers in Louisiana, there's no outcry from any black women organizations. That is a fucking contradiction of all times, that when black women get slaughtered by white men, not a goddamn peep. I'm not. Now, the black man that lassoed that woman and raped her in New York, everybody's pissed, and they should be. When the black woman's chopped up, thrown in Lake Michigan, not a goddamn peep out of black women. The only time black women open up their goddamn mouths is to attack black men or attack other black women. Black women are being replaced systematically in banking and everywhere else by Latinos and Asians, and y'all not even beefing about it. It's not black men doing it. It's white men that are getting rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's white men. And yet, y'all want to get with them. I'm not saying don't. I'm only saying your body is a theater of war too. It never stopped. They got certain folks thinking if you've got kids by 10 different men, you aren't a slave. They got black women to reproduce 10, 12 kids for them to be slaves. Your kids end up in prison. They get the organs from your kids. You're still a belly warmer for the system if you don't have a serious family structure where you're trying to liberate as best you can with the most formidable family system that you can have with a man and a woman. No other group of women in the world say they don't need men. All of this started in the late 60s. And I don't care who I offend. The most dangerous people in the black community today are black lesbian feminists. They're the most dangerous people. In part, it's partially black men's fault because anybody with the pussy is a superhero and a saint and a patriot to weak niggas who act like the world's going to run out of pussy if they're not a suck up to every woman that walks by. If a sister had a t-shirt on, I cut off black men's dicks, I can assure you I know 20 dudes that would try to talk to her. She's sexy. If a man had a thing, I beat black women's ass on his shirt, people would be going off on him, male and female. Black men do too check black men that mess over black women. Black women don't check black women that mess over black men or black children or black women. There is a femininity gap, an accountability gap, an agenda gap that you sisters have. It must be corrected. That is the war you can wage. Palestinian women fight for Palestinian men. Are black women fighting for at least black kids? Every time I see someone promoting the sexual mutilation of children, it's either a bald-headed black woman or a black woman with a weave on that can't define woman or is pushing the craziest stuff that's making white folks want to exterminate us all the more because the black woman's become the face of out-of-control black people. Since they have the men locked up, they basically have black men where they want them. You're the hermaphrodite standing, meaning that these attacks on black women are a manifestation that now they're coming for sisters. And these 12 to 15 million illegal men in this country, you see missing black children, missing. If the illegals are raping and killing black girls and women, the police and the media will not cover it because it's a design to replace us. If black women won't be advocates, all this superwoman shit, if you won't be advocates for black women and black children, who the hell will be? Especially when you won't let the men have joint custody. They can't even be around the kids. And you move in Sancho and all that. The horror stories have only begun. That's part of the warfare. Open your eyes, sisters. I'm not picking on you. And I like women's bodies as much as a simp. But I've got integrity. I'm not going to beg. I'm not going to lie to you until you're not out of order. No pussy's that good. There, I said it. No pussy's so good that I can't tell you the truth. It never will be that good. And black men who are raised by women who didn't have the integrity don't have the integrity to tell you that their dignity and their integrity is not less than the thing between your legs. You were born with it. If you're not using it the right way, it's almost better if you didn't have it. But then again, you have to pee somehow. All right, I made a lot of feminist enemies today. I'll pat myself on the back. I love messing with feminists. God. Compelled to update its riot control manual for the first time in more than a decade, the American Correctional Association noted new developments in the form as well as the content of these new eruptions. Regarding the form, they were increasingly contagious, an idea that mirrored the anxieties of 17th and 18th century planocrats who feared that if allowed to develop, slave resistance would spread, infecting otherwise disorderly geographies. Regarding content, the ACA found that in the post-1970 prison rebellions were less likely to emerge as spontaneous outbursts of anger and more likely to be organized, calculated movements of massive resistance, supported and assisted by outside groups and led by intelligent inmates using revolutionary tactics. Moreover, alluding to their maximum demands, the ACA wrote that these new eruptions were increasingly motivated by a conscious desire to bring about revolutionary improvements in the American social system and put an end to the devaluation of certain elements of the population by those who were in positions of power. In other words, to lift up black folks and check white folks. Thus, we see that it is not only rebels, but also the state that understood this era of carceral struggle as being about as much as more than prison conditions and prison reform. Although they erupted within prisons, these rebellions looked beyond them. As I will show the fact that this was not widely understood today, it is an effect of prison pacification. Authored by some of the best minds in American corrections, the ACA manual sought to reorient carceral systems towards administration of political warfare. The organization advised prisoncrats to maintain well-equipped riot squads capable of splitting up the rioters into manageable groups, detailed maps of the physical layout to facilitate the tactical reassertion of control, and updated logs of available weapons and supplies. Based on the theory that all rebellions contain elements of leadership, the manual stressed that rebel leaders should be swiftly identified, eliminated, or rendered ineffective. It also advocated the use of psychological warfare, instructing prisoncrats to be at least as concerned with controlling the public's perception of riots as they were with controlling the riots themselves. As such, it urged administrators to cultivate mutual confidence and understanding with media outlets to achieve sympathetic coverage. It further indicated that public perception and not the regard for human life should be the primary detriment to dealing with hostage situations. Although a reckless disregard for hostage life would not be excused by the public or by his fellow employees, the ACA stressed that the prison guards accepted the same risk associated with being a police officer or a soldier. Therefore, determinations about the fate of captured guards should be based on political rather than moral calculations. Published in 1970, the manual reflects the insinuation of counterinsurgency into the normalized routines of prison management, a process that would only intensify over time, while the FBI's use of illegal covert actions to neutralize movements outside prison walls have been well documented. Its use of similar methods inside prison walls are not well known. On August 21st, 1970, 1 year to the day before George Jackson was assassinated in San Quentin Prison, Hoover launched a program of carceral counterintelligence, what became known as the Prison Activist Surveillance Program, PRISACS. It was first exposed by the legal team of Daruba Ben Wahad, an associate, I know him, a Black Panther Party Black Liberation political prisoner who the FBI helped frame for the attempted murder of 2 New York Police Department patrolmen in 1971. As a result of the protracted lawsuits against the Bureau, the NYPD, and the New York Department of Correctional Services, Ben Wahad, along with attorneys Elizabeth Fink, Robert Boyle, I've met him once, and others proved that the conviction was secured through the prosecution's illegal withholding of exculpatory evidence. Not only did this result in the reversal of Ben Wahad's conviction and his release from prison in 1990, it yielded more than 300,000 pages of documents pertaining to clandestine government repression of domestic dissent, including the Bureau's targeting of those whom incarceration had failed to neutralize. After safeguarding these materials for decades, Ben Wahad and Boyle entrusted me with several boxes from this massive archive. Since the rigorous study of war necessitates attention to both sides of the struggle, Tip of the Spear pulls exclusively from archives of white supremacy and repression, acquired from the personal collections of veterans like Ben Wahad and others, as well as state repositories and Freedom of Information Act requests. These documents attest to a constantly mutating statecraft of counterinsurgency across prison walls, recognizing that the state seeks to criminalize and incarcerate Black radical knowledge while stabilizing its own legitimacy. I analyze these hostile sources through a rebellious and disloyal interpretive paradigm. Just as the effective conduct of a revolutionary war demands mobility, flexibility, and creativity, so too does its historical interpretation. I therefore deploy carceral sources, surveillance files, official investigations, prison records, police records, and mainstream journalism in various ways depending on the context. In some moments, I cite them to corroborate what people have told me. In others, I invoke them to expose silences, distortions, and redactions, and narratives of domination, or to demystify the racist and patriarchal logics of the permanent war machine. In any case, my simultaneous reading of carceral and Black radical sources, a method I call archival war, generates the epistemic antagonisms that make no effort to resolve. To the contrary, I underscore these antagonisms as evidence of a war that unfolds on material, cognitive, narrative, and epistemological terrains. Epistemology is how people think. Repent, Saint Jesus. You racist white supremacists need to seek Jesus, and he's not white. You need to repent. Who is this racist on here? McGowan. He doesn't even know who the hell he is. And I want to say to you that racism is a sin. And racists burn in hell. It says in Revelations, people that are haters go to hell. If you hate people by skin color, you can't be a Christian. Most of you guys going to church, you're going to burn. Your ancestors that lynched and enslaved people are already burning. What a sad life. You spend all your time hating everybody. You're going to tell me about Jesus. The fact that we know there's a Jesus in our community is that we don't want to kill all of you for what you've been doing to us. That's how it really goes. In the world, it's blood for blood. And I'm not advocating blood for blood. It's your people who practice genocide for nonviolence. Repent. Yeah, you need to repent. We're reading about the wickedness, and you have to understand something, that this is metaphysical as well. That's why I'm going to say to you, white racism is Luciferian Satanism. Anyone that hates other people is of Satan, of evil. Okay? You're never going to hear me come on here and say I hate people because of what they look like. That's just ridiculous. I will never preach that. I don't believe that. But there are a lot of very sick people, and this whole system that allows them to torture, molest, rape, take the organs from people is because these people are agents of Satan. All of you that are atheists out there that think there's no importance, if you don't believe in something to be able to deal with these demons in day-to-day life, you're going to suffer. Your ancestors were praying because that's about all they had, and some of them were doing a hell of a lot better. The black community has more money now than they've ever dreamed of, and we're doing worse. What's the difference? We've become Americanized. We're more like what we beheld in white people than they are. Don't work together. Don't support one another. Can't form a family, can't cooperate, can't reason. Pull out a gun at a party, start shooting people because this isn't who we are, but this is what we've fallen to. Part of why I want to read this book is I need you to understand they failed to crack the people in the prisons. So instead, they invented a prison fabulous life and got it to be outside the walls. Remember, he was talking about public perception to make prisons glamorous, to make going to jail great. Sagging and all this. This is part of a systemic thing to destroy us. Don't ever let anybody, in particular nobody that's white or anything, ever taught you about conversion to any religion. That includes Islam. If they're not talking about reparations and restitution for what's been done to us by the Muslims since the 600s and by the so-called fake weaponized Luciferian Christianity that they've been pushing since the 1400s. There's no God in that. These people talked about law and warfare. There's also the religious dimension to the warfare. It's been a crusade against us. The Moors that the Christian crusaders fought, a lot of them was black people. And the crusades that the Spanish waged against people in Latin America, and then what they did in America, this is a thing about I have the right to kill you because Jesus Christ is white. And you guys are the devil's people. And this is why I said I want to talk about Robert Louis Dabney and white Christian nationalism. It is satanic. Dylan Rolfe is satanic. All the people that are against reparations, it's satanic. I will be talking about this in the my SALT sermon about 2:30 today. Reparations is biblical. Jesus Christ believed in reparations. Anybody white calling themselves a Christian, if you follow Christ, you believe in reparations. If you're a Satanist, you don't. Anybody that ever dares tell you they're Christian and they're against reparations, they're a liar. And that's what I'm going to say. What's more reparational than the story that an innocent man dies to save humanity. That's a reparation. The whole Christian story is based on reparation. Any cracker that can't get that never knew who God was. Never let anybody tell you you don't know a damn thing about God if this country and this American empire doesn't disturb you mentally. The crimes that have been committed for hundreds of years against people and not even fighting them. If that doesn't disturb you, you couldn't know who God is. Why? The Christian thing teaches love. You couldn't love me and not want me to have housing, not want me to have safe drinking water, not want me to have good schools, and not have enough food to eat, not to have health care. You don't want me disproportionately in the military, in prison, on drugs, homeless, insane. You have to be an agent of Satan to want this. And I don't wish ill on any people. You look at all my videos and never would do that. I will not do that because I know who God is, and they don't. So you racists, keep your racist Luciferian asses off of my platform, because I'm going to tell you that you're going to hell. And the scriptures say, how can you love God who you've not seen and hate your brother? The very first person that was a murderer, and murder is a part of Satanism, was Cain. What did Cain say in Genesis? I'm not my brother's keeper. Racism says they're not responsible for what happens to us. It's justified. I just told you, John Marshall. Huh? John Marshall, we beat their ass, we do whatever we want to them. That's not the gospel. That's Satanism. And you don't have to be in the Nation of Islam to call a devil. We got black devils, but I'm sorry, I'm going to call you out if you have, I don't care what you look like, but if you come with the spirit of Satanism and Lucifer, and you think because you're pink, I'm not going to trash you, you've come to the wrong place. And I say this to any black person that sits up under a jackass like T.D. Jakes or these other people who haven't told these no good white preachers like Joel Osteen and all the others that they're going to burn in hell for being these evangelicals that let our people suffer like this, that they're going to burn. Those coon preachers are going to burn too. There's a responsibility, if you say that you believe in God, to tell people the truth. Part of the gospel is that you got to change your ways. The abolitionist movement that he's talking about was a movement that was telling people in so many words, if you owned people and you did this, you were going to hell. That was part of the power of the abolitionist movement, even though it was just a minority of people, white, that got it. That's why that brother Elijah Lovejoy was willing to die to fight slavery, and John Brown. And last month, on April 7th, there's a gentleman, if you're from Cleveland, named Reverend Bruce Clundell, a white man who threw himself in front of a tractor to try to keep them from building a school that was segregated. And they ran over him with the tractor and killed him, and they were innocent for murdering this white man who's a preacher. He was a Christian. He laid his life down for what's right. If you're not doing that, you're not it. 99% of what you see on Sunday coming up is a business. It's a hustle. It is a hustle. I'm sorry. I don't like most churches. You can't get me inside of them. They're Masons and all this evil imagery and stuff in there. It freaks me out at this state. And I'm a preacher's kid. I don't like most churches. And in particular, I can feel the hate sometimes. You walk by a white church and you can feel the hate. I'm going to say something. When you see a big, rich, old white church, when you go down south, I want to tell you how those churches got big. They got big off of a thing called a slave endowment, where the church owned slaves. Same church teaches you not to fornicate. They would screw the slaves and sell the children like rabbits. The churches did this. Princeton did it. Harvard did it. Yale did it. University of Virginia did it. When you see these First Baptists, First this, for those churches throughout the South, their capital to have an educated pastor often were in the form of raping a black woman and selling the kids or use the black men. Yes, they did. How can that be God? That's Satan. You can tell a tree by its fruit. Do they love? Do we have a fair, equitable society? No, we don't. Can't be God. Keep dreaming. All right. I just had to, so yeah, please, please, please. I never said damn God. I never said damn scriptures. I didn't say, I said damn the business, damn the racism, damn the lies and the hypocrisy. People need to understand Maryland, Maryland, slave state. It's a Catholic slave state. The Jesuits owned people. They molested kids and all this other kind of stuff. I'm just saying. Georgetown University was saved by its sale of slaves. I'm just telling you. I mean, don't tell me to repent. Be very careful. One of the main ways that they dominate people is a lot of our folks think these other people have something we don't. White people do not have a lock on God. White people don't have a lock on truth. White people don't have a lock on reality. In fact, they're very much into unreality and denial. And they don't know who God is. Proof of that is how we've been treated. And I'm not trying to be funny, folks. Proof of how wicked this system is. I'm not trying to be cute, and I'm not trying to make anybody feel odd. But if I said to you, the King James Bible, put together about 1611, if I said to you, King James is my uncle biologically, same devil trying to lecture me doesn't even know that his kings and queens from Europe look like me. That's sickness. The Bible says Satan's the father of lies. The greatest lie is that everything and all civilizations start and begin with white civilization. It is a damn lie. It is a lie from hell. As I said in last week's sermon, racism is Luciferian white supremacy. It is a synagogue of Satan. Why do you think the scriptures talk about a synagogue of Satan? If you read in Revelations, it comes right after the church in what city? Philadelphia, brotherly love. The synagogue of Satan is juxtaposed to Philadelphia, people who love their brothers. Us. Synagogue of Satan are people who don't love their brothers. Racism is part of what we're warned about in the Bible. Racism can get people to do every kind of wicked thing to other people because other people aren't human. It is so satanic, and it's normative, and the main purveyors of racism worldwide, sorry, you white people. On a global basis, y'all been everywhere, messed over. Nobody's ever done anything like y'all have for like 600 years straight. And and use God's name in vain to say it's God's will that we kill off the Indians, we enslave and kill the Africans. That's God. No, if that is your God, it is Satan. And you're a Satanist. And only Satanists would build jails instead of schools and housing. We need to reassert the moral authority of our ancestors to call people out that they're Satanists. Stop letting them tell you that they're preachers or they're this or that. You can't tell me a goddamn thing. Let me tell you something. I'm going to stop here. back in the 90s, all these so-called white evangelical churches, because they're waging war against us too, had this racial reconciliation thing with black churches, and they apologized for slavery. It's bullshit. Because these same white churches support a thing called ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, where they create legislation to reduce black people to slavery. Did you know there's such an entity? And they consistently think of and look at ways to take away everything that black people have gotten since 1865. And this is all they do. Just sit down and say, how can we hurt black people? It is ALEC that came up with HR 4321, where they're saying nothing that any city, state, town, or county that they do to help black people, if they do that, they should be cut off from all federal government money. Basically, they're trying to get a law where literally the only way that black people will be able to exist is to be in a situation worse than slavery. That was put in committee last year. That's what these fake white Christians do. And if you're not like that, then God damn it, then tell your other racist white folks to stop it. You could stop it. Never let them come and talk to you. Y'all need to talk to each other, white folks. Confront each other. And they won't do it because you know what? Their God is white power. It isn't Christ. It's not the thing in the book. The Bible is used as a weapon against people. And in fact, not only is it used as a weapon, they tried to set it up where we couldn't even read. So we had to just go with what they told us. And in reality, to this day, too many of us go with what these people tell us. To hell with what they say. To hell with what they think. Got to think for yourself. God gave you a mind to talk to him and talk to each other. I didn't say hate anybody, but why do you look to another group of people to educate you, to feed you, to tell you what to think? You turn your kids, your health. Why can't I go amongst my own and get these things? That's part of the warfare. That's the other thing that he's not mentioning. It's called ethnocide, where you destroy all the institutions. Not only did they attack black activists, they attacked black business people. Anything that black people could have to hold, that was destroyed as a means to ultimately genocide us. And we need to grow up to that and stop acting like everything is post-racial. And I don't care whether people know or not, if someone points a gun at you and pulls the trigger and didn't know it's loaded and it shoots you dead, you're just as dead as if they meant to shoot you. And I'm going to tell you something, I must finish. The most disgusting thing about racist white Americans is that there are 80 million black people in this country. We have the 6th largest economy in the world. And they know more about China and Germany and Russia and everywhere else. They don't know anything about us in this country. That takes a whole lot of work to pretend to literally make a people extinct in your own mind. That they don't even matter. They know more about the illegals coming in than you. Will do more for an illegal than a black veteran or a black person that's paid into the system. And not see that as contradictory. I mean, whether you like me or not, what you would give it to a mass killer that's let out of jail in Honduras, you do all that, but a black veteran, you'd leave them starved to death? That's hatred. And that's genocide. You used his health up and messed him up, and then you leave him to die. That's how they got rid of blacks in Argentina and Uruguay, in Chile. Not that they're not blacks, but they decimated the black men, put them in all these wars. Same thing happens here. Put them in jail. Never let anyone lecture you about God. Never. If they really believe in God, what are they willing to do for you? I'll be talking about that later today. We have to talk a little bit about spiritual stuff too. It's all interconnected. If you understand that J. Edgar Hoover said they have to prevent a rise of a black messiah, they see the war against us in spiritual terms as well. All the little black leftists and other people say, oh, there's no God, we don't need all this. They've been listening to, forgive me, GCP commies. And yet the GCP, when they want to take some land from somebody, they start talking about the Bible and Torah and all this other kind of stuff, right, to manipulate people. We're the only people who will throw away a transcendent concept of brotherhood, unity, and spiritual harmony because of a passing phase. Come on, y'all. All right. Let me keep going. By expropriating evidence from carceral archives, I am able to illuminate the prison pacification process in the process, prison pacification in the process of formation, frantically reacting to the crisis that the FBI helped create. Hoover explained to a special agent in Albany that top priority should be given to what he termed black extremist activities. Let me see, did I read this? I'll read it anyway. Black extremist activities in penal institutions, a term that discloses the structuring of anti-blackness in the carceral war. And a March 9th, 1971 memo, he wrote, there is no question that a definite link is being established between the extremely dangerous black extremist organizations such as the Black Panther Party and black extremist groups operating within the penal system in this country. Likewise, there's no doubt regarding the fact that the black extremists in our penal system are increasingly responsible for fomenting discord within the penal system, including extortion, blackmail, rioting, and the holding of hostages in the furtherance of their revolutionary aims. It was imperative, Hoover stressed, that agents develop sources of information among prison officials and each penal institution and ascertain the identity of all suspect black revolutionary extremists, as well as details regarding their revolutionary activities and the forming of any black extremist groups similar to the Black Panther Party. Moreover, arrangements should be made to be advised in advance of the release of any revolutionary black extremist to enable the Bureau to open an investigation to follow his activities immediately after release. The operations of state power and secrecy preclude us from obtaining the proof of illegal government activity. However, an abundance of evidence suggests that FBI involvement and the assassinating of imprisoned revolutionaries, just as it does with its counterparts in the free world. That's in quotes, free world. Moreover, captive rebels have long argued that many who evaded physical assassination were subjected to technologies of living death, including sensory deprivation, behavior modification, brain warfare, and mind control experiments, entitled The War on the Black Revolutionary Minds, Chapter 6, discusses episodes that are often dismissed as conspiracy theories or examples of racial paranoia, and yet this hesitancy to pursue seemingly outlandish or unprovoked claims has hindered our understanding of historical development and the political dynamics in play. Many of the events explored throughout this book cannot be proven according to the positive standards of truth because the powerful actors strove to conceal their actions. In other words, people who tell the truth, friends, face a government that deals in secrecy and lies, that does everything, which means there are things I can tell you. I saw a group of people outside the Inter-American Defense Agency on Euclid and 16th Street, like 2 weeks before there was the coup against Hugo Chavez, back about 2001. I told people there's going to be a coup in Venezuela. I've never seen people outside that building before. They were all Marine in naval uniforms, and it happened 2 weeks later. Trust me, there'll be no record of this meeting. And certain people tell you I'm delusional, I'm a conspiracy theorist. I saw him. I didn't have, take pictures, but you get where I'm coming from? It's difficult. It's difficult. It's difficult to. They make it such that there are things that are secrets, like the Kennedy assassination. They won't let you know who did it. They won't release it to protect people. So it's hard. It's interesting. They call people conspiracy theorists, but won't let you look at evidence. Why not produce evidence that the people are lying? Because they can't. And so what he's saying is, we were not allowed the means to prove what we are saying because they'll do everything to hide the truth of it. And then attack the people that tell us, say, well, you can't prove that. You don't do that because, well, where's your documentation? If you've ever dealt with the FBI, they'll black out everything they'll black out the whole page. You fought, and they'll give you the page, but they black it out so you can't get one piece of it. That's how this wicked repressive system works, is to even hide all truth and facts so they're in control of the narrative. They know what it is, but they're not going to say. And if you say you can't prove it on the terms that they would demand, even if you can see all the circumstances of or all the evidence of a genocide or repression, you don't have. You see it, but maybe it's all circumstantial. It's all circumstantial that almost all the abortion clinics that Planned Parenthood has is within 2-mile walking distance of black areas. I mean, just all of them, all the time. That's no conspiracy. Well, you're a right-wing conservative. All of them? When they wanted to build the super highways and do urban renewal, they destroyed all the black communities. They ran superhighways through all of them. No. All those things require planning. All those things require research to do it. Okay, but you may not be able to touch things because it's in the archive. And you can't go into certain places. You can't look. Can't know. Understand there's so much. In fact, and part of what we should want from reparations is to demand that we get all of our papers and secrets. See, people say you don't do. If we had some of the stuff to show how wicked this thing is, a whole lot of folks would have no choice but to try to pay to shut this thing down. Same way when the police shot Laquan McDonald in Chicago, and the videotape got out and they couldn't hide it, right? This is the same situation that we have to understand, that there is a conspiracy against the truth and against truth tellers and against facts. Not just against activists, but people that ask questions are seen as bad. Sometimes they get killed. There was a white woman that was looking into pedophilia and human trafficking of children, the Child and Family Services. They killed her and her husband in Georgia, and if you start asking questions, they may shoot you too. And just none of this happened. Well, they just got killed. Well, no, they shot themselves. Let me just keep moving. Critically, coercion is not the only weapon in the arsenal of this carceral war machine. Authors of counterinsurgency doctrine stress the imperative of calibrating terror-inducing violence with solicitous reforms, aka let's take care of the boule and the bushies. Let's make it seem as if things work. Look at what we're going to do for Michael Jordan and Oprah and Jay-Z and Shitty and Demonce. Help them and get people to say, everything's fair. You just tried. Look, Obama won. Believe. You get me? It's a divide and rule. Give certain people, certain privileged, favored coons, get stuff, and other people, no matter what, can't. And say, man, it's because you didn't try hard enough. Well, you need to wear the right suit. You need to know how to talk. You need to do this. You need to do that. See, you're too ethnic. You know, you need to put on some blue contacts, put some blonde in your hair. They'll make it. Or get a grant, man. Just join, right? It's all a way of controlling people. It's not always through violence. Listen to this. United States Army Counterinsurgency Field Manual. Counterinsurgency means basically a way to fight against people. Notes that auxiliaries might be co-opted. Listen to this. Auxiliaries, helpers, coons, traitors might be co-opted by economic or political reforms. So you help 10% of black folks. Top 15% of black folks have 85% of the wealth in the black community, if not more. They're the ones pushing Biden and saying everything is great. And you'll never see them. The ones in caucus and all these people, they're the ones making 6 and 7 figures. They don't live the reality of 85% of black people. And I tell you, you could be like them. Suck a dick. Get screwed in the behind. Munch carpet. Get in an interracial relationship. Stop believing in God. Become a Buddhist. Or stop being so black. Then you can have the good things too. Screw Clive Davis. Or Mr. Blumberg. Or whoever. Who's that guy from Universal Music that's named? I'm not going to call him. Co-opted by economic or political forms, while fanatic combatants will most likely have to be killed or captured. So the people who don't want to be bought off, those who can't be tricked into cooning, they kill them. Malcolm X couldn't be bought. Dr. King couldn't be bought. Medgar Evers couldn't be bought. Fred Hampton couldn't be bought. Henry and Henrietta Moore couldn't be bought. People who couldn't get bought get killed. And we can name others of people all over the country that get killed. They couldn't be bought. And there's another type of repression. I know what it's like. I have a friend who is a Black Panther. He can't get a job at a McDonald's. Trust me, I know what it's like to apply for a job. And the job's open, and then all of a sudden the job's closed. There was a lady that was calling around, an African lady from Liberia, was calling around telling people to fire me. She's connected to the intelligence community. I'm just telling you, I've experienced it. Y'all, trust me, a lot of people that are outspoken and black, they can't work certain places. It's not that they committed a crime. It's that this thing is still in operation. When 9/11 occurred, I want to tell you that Haile Gerima, the filmmaker who made Sankofa, I don't know if he was joking, but what he said to me is that the people asked him about me. I used to raise a lot of hell when I was a student at Howard. That they asked the teachers about me, what needed to happen to me. You'll find right after 9/11 at Howard University, the phones that we were forced to have in our rooms had the same extension numbers. The last four numbers matched, or I should say the first three numbers matched that of Homeland Security. And I can go on and on of things that I've seen happen. I know if there's a woman named Yolanda that was an activist that used to visit my house, this is 70s, used to work in the community, try to help people. She was killed face down, execution style in Southeast DC, about 1975. They shot her in the head, left in an abandoned building. That's 1975. This stuff is real. And so you can be a really good person and end up dead. There was a guy, his last name was, I think his name was Robert Rhodes. Very active talking about America and apartheid in South Africa. Student at Howard. Somebody drugged him and they messed up his mind. I think he's dead. These things happen. Even the people that not out breaking laws, not trying to, just telling the truth. You know, I'll tell you something that happened at Howard University. The students organized, along with others, a moratorium on the United States government sanctions busting. The United States was buying chrome and other minerals from Rhodesia. It was a white supremacist, white settler colony in what's now called Zimbabwe. And they were buying so they could have money to buy weapons to do genocide on the black majority, which is Matabele or Ndebele and Shona. And the students at Howard and others had a big march to protest sanctions busting. And that's when people started getting hurt that I knew as a child. After the moratorium, that's when they poisoned Mr. Rhodes. And that's when Yolanda got shot in the head. These are very real things, people. I'm not super militant. I'm not out with guns or whatever. I'm just trying to say to you, I've seen people. I will give you last month. Anyone that can get to a paper for Gary, Indiana, or Chicago, you can look up a gentleman whose name is Jonathan Booz. A friend of mine was assassinated last month in Gary, Indiana, found decomposing. I warned him a few months ago. Be careful. Watch out for the scam, fake Pan-Africanists. I says they won't even carry your body to the morgue, nor will they tell anyone where your body is. They found him decomposing. His funeral was last Saturday. He's dead within 4 months of me telling them that they would kill him. He's a friend. He's dead. 49 years old. I don't make these things up. I'm not trying to scare you. I don't have a huge platform of 32 people watching, whatever. Even small, this guy was trying to help the youth, trying to take over the school system in Gary so black kids could learn. He's dead. He's dead. Nobody knows anything. This has happened more than a few times. This is happening now. Okay. I was in the same hospital as Dick Gregory. A doctor I didn't know was going to try to give me surgery without the consent of my mother, who's my guardian. I mean, when I'm in the hospital. They had an ambulance and everything to take me somewhere. That was in March of 2022. And had to fight like hell to get out of that hospital. They're not going to kill me like Dick Gregory. I told my mother. You don't think they know who we are and where we are? And they want to puncture my lungs and all this stuff and get me to agree to it. No guarantee. And they wouldn't be liable if my lungs suffered. I'm serious. Little people of color bitch tried to tell me that you're going to stab me in my lungs? See all the gagging and stuff I'm doing with the stuff I already have? What do I need with a hole in there, right? Open your eyes. There's a war that's declared on us whether we want to fight or not. I'm not a person of violence, but I'm telling you, violence is being done against us on so many ways until we don't even think about it. Let me keep reading. Measures designed to rectify genuine grievances and increase prosperity. So in other words, they say, hey, wait a minute. We really are effing black people. So we are screwing them. Let's use some KY jelly. So the legitimate, genuine grievances and increase prosperity. In other words, pay off a few. Deprive insurgents of issues that can be exploited to foment popular unrest. Listen, I'm going to tell you this name. Explains Frank Kitson. Let me just tell you, I know about Frank. The U.S. Army Counterinsurgency Field Manual is quoting Frank Kitson. Frank Kitson was in charge of doing genocide in Malaysia against the Malays and Chinese and against the black people in Kenya. This has one of his books. Okay, Frank Kitson, the British counterinsurgency expert whose low-intensity operation, subversion, insurgency, and peacekeeping was central to the development of COINTELPRO and PRISACs. They had the concentration camps where they tortured and beat and murdered people in Kenya and Malaysia. Frank Kitson had a book called Bunch of Fives. He was the one that learned how to get, it's called gang counter gang, to get different people or to get people to fight and kill each other. This is what they're doing with the music in England and in Chicago and other places where they're using gangs and people to kill each other and issue threats. This is a program that's been in effect for close to 60 years. Frank Kitson, let me put his name up here for you guys, and you can look him up right in Wikipedia, it'll come up. He's the father of white supremacist guerrilla warfare. I'm gonna put one of his books up, Bunch of Five. It's one book. And he also came up with the gang, counter gang, where he could get black people to murder each other for the state. Did you see a gang, counter gang situation? Yes, you did, with the Black Panthers and United Slaves in Los Angeles, 1965. Or no, later than that, 66, 67, where Bunchy Card and the other guy got killed. In fact, Karanga, who a lot of you worship and follow that Kwanzaa shit, is an agent. I said it, I don't care. Frank Kitson, gang, counter gang. Let me put it up on the screen for the people who don't like to read. Frank Kitson, Bunch of Five, gang, counter gang, warfare. Okay. I have Kitson's books. I think I have Kitson. I may have Kitson's books here. I buy a lot of books, which is why I always ask people, donate, 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 please. In fact, who's donated? Who's dropped? Nobody, by the way, as far as I know now, I didn't get $1. I've been on here since 10 o'clock. It's what, 2 hours. If I were a white supremacist teaching white people to hate black folks, man, my power talk, I'd be rich. We're the only people that don't invest in people who invest in us. That's also part of the brainwashing and the training. That's what he's saying. Genuine grievances and increased prosperity deprive insurgents of issues that can be exploited to foment popular unrest. If you make certain Negroes feel comfortable, you make the ones who are standing up look like, they're not relevant, or, well, man, I'm doing okay, everything's fine. If you had that mindset, you've already been conquered. You've been defeated in your own mind. And everybody in warfare invest in people that are fighting, even if it's intellectual warfare, which is what we're doing right now. And the reason that people don't let people like me teach, let me just tell you a real story. I was being taken down to DC jail to talk to the young brothers there, and I wasn't asking for anything. And the sister who would take me in, she was very good at turning lives around. They are trying to fire her. They didn't want me at the DC jail because I walked through the library and could see there were no reading materials for black people. I didn't say anything, and they had me thrown out of the jail. I didn't protest, no signs, I didn't argue, I didn't frown. And it was a black woman. Yes, it was a black woman that snitched. She could tell I wasn't a coon. She ran to the white woman, told him, get me out of the jail. They had all these books for the Spanish speakers and nothing for black Americans. Nothing. In a city that's at least 50% black, a jail that's 99% black, and there's more stuff for Spanish speakers than for black Americans. Let me type this book that he had. There's another book by Kitson. It's called Low Intensity Operations. And some of these books are inexpensive. You can get them on Amazon. They didn't teach me this in school. And so I'm trying to get y'all to open your minds. And by the way, they won't necessarily teach you this in college. And they didn't want me in DC jail. All I was trying to do is talk to young brothers, and they put me out twice. I'll go back. The young brothers like me. They're just afraid we're going to do something. I would tell the brothers to respect each other, to read, to pray, to be decent towards each other. Do you realize that's subversive? In the prisons, they encourage the fighting and the gangs and the sodomy and the rape and the drugs. That's part. All of this shit that people call keeping it real is a way of destroying us. Yes, God will absolutely help us. I believe God is in this. Wake up. And again, nobody ever heard me say I encourage people to hate folks. You don't know who you're looking at half the time. We should look at people's hearts and their character. Always be vigilant. But as I said to you, the main weapon that these people have are sellouts, traitors that look just like us. Listen to this. They, the intelligent inmate leaders, can be neutralized to a considerable extent by prompt management, attention to widespread correctable grievances. Notes the ACA. The tip of the spear engages with repression and reform as complementary tactics of war that facilitate what scholars have called movement absorption, movement capture. The Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act, the Open Housing Act, that's movement capture. It gave the bougie, elite, boule black folks what they wanted, and it was over. I can have interracial sex. Oh, Loving v. Virginia. I can have interracial sex. I can eat a hamburger next to a Klansman. I can take a crap next to a Klansman. I can vote for people who won't change my situation. Wow, I'm free. Okay. Movement capture, and listen to this, movement channeling, like what the sodomites were doing with Black Lives Matter, channeling us behind trans, or the people of color madness, or ladies, feminism. And the institutionalization of dissent. Institutionalization of dissent meaning we'll give you a grant, we'll give you a not-for-profit. And once you get the not-for-profit money, you can't raise sand in order to keep your budget and employ the people and this, that, and the other. So it's a way to control you through the purse strings. When the United States controlled the Latin American countries, it was called dollar diplomacy. I'll just control all your money. You have to do whatever I tell you to do. We are managed like a foreign colony. The terms describe the strategy of encapsulating potentially disruptive claims, demands, and tactics of movements within liberal institutions and discourses, which transform them into routinized processes that legitimize rather than challenge establish authority. In other words, what they're saying is if they throw a bone to the people, right, then people say they're not so bad. I got a grant. I went to Harvard. The president was black. Oh, we have a black senator. We have a black governor. We have a black vice president. See? It works. Okay. Let me keep reading. Without an understanding of this critical aspect of counterinsurgency theory and practice, listen to this, weaponized reforms will continue to thwart the development of revolutionary and abolitionist projects, as well as their analysis and historization. In many cases, reform, a hallmark of liberalism, involves a little more than the use of obfuscating language that aims to reshape the political and epistemological terrain of struggle. What is he saying? It's like people of color, diversity, equity, and inclusion, post-racial. You do a little bit here or there, and you call it something, and that changes supposedly the discourse of the reality of the people. Hi, Kenya. What they used on the Mau Mau, they're using here on us. Or the Land Freedom Army. And the same way in Kenya, they killed the real leaders of the freedom movement in Kenya. They killed them in America too. And they killed them in South Africa too. And the French killed the ones in Cameroons and the Central African Republic. Their first president, Buganda, died in a freaky plane crash in 1959. These same things work. They build them up and break them up. Okay. And of course, they got Patrice Lumumba, and we can go on and on. So these reforms are meant to prevent. It's sort of like, let me say to you, for you younger people, when the riots took place, let me tell you, they were throwing money at and jobs at everybody black, like it was going out of style. Everybody was getting stuff. You just showed up and black, you got a job. As soon as the riots and they calmed things down, they killed the activists, jailed people, doubled down on the dope in the community, all this other kind of stuff. By, say, 1972, they started taking it all away, and it started with Nixon to destroy, and it was Johnson, and they didn't plan to continue the programs. It was just to cool things down. Okay. Biden and them were talking about police reform when people were burning stuff in 2020. I'm not saying I agree with any of that. They were at least talking it. When the burning stopped, Biden said, to hell with y'all. Y'all got to get behind the Hispanics. Sure he did. I'm not saying I even agree with that movement. I'm just trying to give an example. But all kinds of things. There were all kinds of youth programs. They were giving books. They were giving food. They were doing all kinds of stuff all over the community, but they also had people spying. They used those programs to spy. They had Vista. All these people were spying. These are white kids from certain places that spy and learn about who all the black people were so they could be targeted. It looked like they were helping, and in reality, these weren't like the projects. They weren't meant to solve the black housing problem. They were a trick to get people in those places and let them die. It was intentional. We need to understand that. We've been lied to about the civil rights movement. The reason that they keep praising the civil rights movement is you think if they let a dog bite you or you get water hosed, that you'll get some rights. Well, the police kill a good 1,000 blacks every year. If killing black people produced an outcome that advanced us, we should be ruling this country as many of us get killed. Every year, 3,000-4,000 black men die in prison before they get to trial, whether they're guilty or not. They're killed by the guards, they commit suicide, they get sick. If getting beat on Edmund Pettus Bridge meant so goddamn much, how could the thousands of people that get killed by the police not translate into some kind of social change for us, other than we were lied to? The civil rights movement was a bullshit public relations scam. I'm not saying that I don't like the access it's supposed to give, although this country is segregated now as it used to be. The schools are segregated now as they used to be. In Louisiana and in Alabama, Alabama should have 2 black congressional districts. They have one. They just won in Louisiana. Louisiana is 40% black, and there's only one black congressperson. I mean, South Carolina is about 30%. They got one. I mean, even with the voting rights, they find that hasn't changed stuff. And with all the boule and the sellout black people as an auxiliary of the Democratic Party, which is all they are. Black folks have become a wing of the Democratic Party, which is the same party that was for slavery, lynching, Jim Crow, and everything else. And they gave a few reforms between 1964 and 1968. And then the Democrats stopped doing it because the Republicans came in on a Southern strategy. And a lot of these people started voting for the Republicans who ran on, they basically switched roles. Actually, they didn't really switch. The Republicans started doing the same thing that the Southern Democrats did. And certain people basically became Republican to keep it going. So we've been trapped between them. And the Republicans, a lot of them, not all, have been attacking everything that black people had, and the Democrats haven't defended. They're not even fighting for welfare. Going back to Clinton, they've been cutting even the crumbs that they used to give. The crumbs are disappearing. And even now, they're giving more crumbs to illegals in this country than they'll give to you and I. There are black disabled people in Washington, D.C. who get $6 a month in SNAP and food stamps, and yet there are illegals that get 1,000, and then their family gets money. You go in the store and you watch these illegals, and they've got baskets full of food, and you see black folks at work with 4 or 5 items in their basket cart. That goes on in the goddamn grocery stores where you and I live right now. Not a peep from moist Hakeem Jeffries. Not a peep. Not a peep from the Negro preachers. These AME people who think abortion is civil rights but can't say anything when their own parishioners can't afford to eat. One in 5 black people in this country is food insecure. Tonight, 30% of the children or more in Mississippi did not get enough to eat. It was the same in 1965. Did the civil rights movement change things? With punk-ass Benny Thompson, all he does is attack Trump. Where the people have hookworm, the black Americans all over the South have worms that prevent them from developing because they walk around in their own shit because they don't have plumbing and no one cries out for them. There are people in Africa that don't have hookworm. There are people in South America that don't have hookworm, but they have hookworm in Alabama and in Arkansas, in Mississippi, in Texas, in Alabama, in Georgia. Don't even have a safe place to shit in America. What? 100,000 missing black women in this country, tens of thousands of missing black children in this country. Have you ever noticed, and there's no movement, there's no matter what the atrocity is that's happening in this country, there's no response to it. None. No organized, there's nothing that upsets the black boule because it doesn't happen to them. See, if they take care of 10, 15% of us, they'll make certain that the rest of us die. I will keep repeating this, and the most disgusting thing of all times is that the Greek letter organizations ran the Tuskegee experiment. Black people helped kill black people with syphilis. Before you blame white people, they helped the white people. It's that kind of people that they've empowered, that they've prospered to kill. They did it in Kenya. Masses of Kenyans in Kibera and other areas left behind, and the rich ones that are crooked at the top that kiss the British and the Chinese and the Indians and other people's asses, and they let the people suffer. By the way, Kenya was where who? Kitson was. Think about it. Obama's from where? Kenya. Obama's father came to America through the CIA's African airlift. Your dumbasses voted for Obama. He was a CIA psych op. And 99.9% of you fools fell for it. And you still have his shirts and books and stuff, and his mannish-looking wife and the kids that aren't his. Damn. You know, black folks were smart in the 60s. And by the way, in the 60s, 50s and 60s, when they wanted to control white kids, they gave them LSD until they found out LSD made white kids radical, so then they just started letting them have heroin like they had already been given to black people. LSD for white people in the 60s, that was part of Operation Chaos that I was talking about earlier. I don't know what the operation is called, but they've got all of our stupid ass people, hi Kenyan friend, they got us all on Daga. Daga is a Kenyan word for weed. No, shada. Shada for Kenya, Daga for South Africa. I'm sorry. Drugs. So all this weed being pushed, you need to understand the CIA is in the music business. The CIA is in the movie business. The CIA is responsible for Sidney Poitier being a movie star. The CIA were the people that said you have to have blacks in American films. We have to show the world that this society is diversified. You can't have all white movies when we're having a Cold War with the Russians and they're talking about American racism. We have to establish a visage, a fake facade that things are better and improved and America's opening and inclusive. Let me tell you something. The same year Rodney King got his ass beat, was it 1989? It's the same year that the Berlin Wall came down. Ever since America's contest with Russia stopped, black people have been moving backwards. The civil rights movement was a Cold War masturbatory scam, and we fell for it. We didn't know any better, but now that we know, look at how the Boule and them won't say anything. The jabs was a psychological warfare effort of the United States military against the American people, principally us. By the way, my friend that works in D.C. jail, one of her friends had a heart attack yesterday or recently. They got the jab. All these people dying, they've actually learned that they can kill black people with medical scares, and that they will ignore their history and just go and roll up there. There was this fat greaseball black woman saying, I don't want to know about the additives. I don't want to know whether it's got FDA approval. I don't care about what's inside of it. I'm going to roll up my sleeve and I'm going to take the shot. And it took, I'm sorry, some stupid ass black women in our community. So they got a dumb, light-skinned, fat black woman to say, I don't care, just give it to me. And look at all the people, my Mary Wilson of the Supremes, Hank Aaron, and it goes Cicely Tyson. All these bodies piling up, and nobody's saying anything. This is proof that they've almost won. They've almost killed off our will to live as a people. And we've allowed it to happen. And there were people telling the truth. And now there are people like, what's this one up in New York? Cuomo is saying he took ivermectin. All of these people coming out saying that they took this stuff. And when people like me were saying it, I was getting people cursing me out, threatening me, you're not a doctor, shut the F up, right? And I've just watched people be sick continuously for the last 3 years. Considering I'm the one that had the heart attack, I'm doing better than the people that got vaccinated. I'm not saying, do what you will. AstraZeneca's in trouble. All of these people getting in trouble. You have white people asking questions. People in Europe, and the one community that's not saying a damn thing with all the deaths is the black American community because of the Boule and the nigger church, crooked nigger preachers that you guys follow. Damn. And also, I'm going to say it, conscious community niggers. They took it too. All the folks who are all into Africa and all this stuff, an imaginary Africa, not a real Africa, they ran like coons and rolled up their sleeves. And when people die, nobody says anything. I don't know if it's pride or whatever that keeps us from being honest, that they did a mini genocide on us. Homeless people made it without jabs. Think about it. Without health care, bad diet, living better than people who had good jobs. Just watching all of these people, in particular the ones with the government jobs. Look, they don't need the black buffer class anymore. And they knew 50% of your black professionals work for state, federal, and municipal governments. And those, you had to get it. So the cream of the black middle class is being decimated. And not a goddamn whimper. They're so proud of the fact they have a 401k, that they've got benefits, and they've got stable employment, that their Hatch Act, I don't ever raise my voice. I got my job, right? They're dying on the vine. It's a pacification. Let me keep reading. Let me see. Oh, and I've just got a page and a quarter left. Okay. In many cases, reform, a hallmark of liberalism, I've read this before, involves little more than the obfuscating language that aims to reshape the political and epistemological terrain of struggle, operated in the context of anti-communist counterinsurgency at the height of the Cold War. Expert propagandist Paul Linebarger dubbed this as nomenclatural reform. And what Ricardo de Leon, an imprisoned Black Panther, called the euphemistic baptisms, prisons became correctional institutions, guards, correctional officers, wardens, superintendents, with similar rhetorical shifts occurring on the national level. In other words, they changed the name of what these people did to make it seem cool. This nomenclatural reform and euphemistic baptisms were part of a broader strategy of psychological warfare through which the counterinsurgency intellectuals aim to present a benign public image of prisons without in any way altering their repressive and dehumanizing function within the social order. Readers will take notice of my obdurate refusal to normalize those reformist vernaculars. This is a rhetorical strategy of counter-war that strives to destabilize the epistemic dominance of the state. Interestingly, the event that brought Queen Mother Moore to Green Haven emerged out of the context of reformist counterinsurgency. Introduced as a direct response to Attica, the prison-based community day events were among the constellation of humanizing reforms that incorporated the revolt's minimum demands in order to pacify rebellion. After Attica, as I show in Chapter 5, New York prison cadets began operating their prisons to outsiders as a tactic of control. Although publicly celebrated as a win for the movements behind the walls, this tactic was essentially a bribe. It allowed prison authorities to dangle the opportunities for captives to commune with their loved ones and partake in these periodic bursts of gaiety, as the New York Times described such events in exchange for their compliance with administratively defined standards of good behavior. That Moore entered this alleged humanized space and nurtured a black militant consciousness that authorities sought to tame, demonstrates her political acuity and illustrates a difficult to perceive psychological layer of this war. These multifaceted tactics of state repression index the dynamism of the movements that they aim to contain, signifying the effect to which the prison rebellions of the 1970s posed a material and symbolic threat to the social order. These highly politicized, self-organized anti-carceral eruptions demonstrated that the most despotic institutions in U.S. society could not contain a rising tide of collective striving for liberation. Moreover, national and international support for these movements signaled a widespread view of the state as illegitimate, as lacking the authority to criminalize populations and banish them from the realm of rights, humanity, and civilization. By recasting the prison as war, and tracing the collision of the long Attica revolt against the imperial technologies of pacification, Tip of the Spear provides a counter history of the contemporary cultural landscape. Readers will not be rewarded with the comforting resolution, nor will they find prescriptions for future action. To seek such prescriptions in an academic book is a fool's errand. He better not talk about no revolution and want to work at American University. What this text provides is an archive and a theory driven narration exposing a war that has been intentionally concealed. Although its geographic focus is New York State, it yields a wealth of new insights about black radical politics and state repression that are global in scope and critical to the understanding of the current political moment. It shows that without understanding carceral space as zones of undeclared domestic war, zones that are inextricably linked to imperial and officially acknowledged wars abroad, we cannot fully understand how and why the United States became the global leader of incarceration that it is today. It is my belief that with the consciousness that we inhabit war, communities of struggle will be in a better position to live through, organize against, and abolish it. I want to make two things because it's time for me to stop. I got to break here. But how do you guys like this book thus far? Like this if you learned something. And this is just the introduction. The rest of the book is an easier read. I'm going to read more of this tomorrow. I promise you we're going to come back and do this again. But I want to say two things. No, I need to sleep. Why did I stay up all night? Angry black man, would you go send me a piece? And this is work. Okay, now, I want to bring up something that I'm very pissed about. I'm pissed about the fact that black women are raped in prisons all the time and there's no outcry from women. Where the hell are you, black women? Women get raped in prison all the time. Black women get raped in the military all the time. They're disproportionately represented in the military, disproportionately raped. Silence. I'm going to keep pointing my finger in the eye of black women. Wake up. Feminism is a lie. Your mission is to be beside and a helpmate to black men, not to be as leader. No, people are led by their women. That's insanity. It will never be so. If women were the true leadership of the black community, they would incarcerate you in greater numbers. If you were the true leaders of our community, the cops would shoot you in greater numbers. Stop claiming credit for that you don't suffer for. It's immoral. It's despicable. It contributes to why we can't see eye to eye because you're lying to yourselves. Don't believe white radical lesbian feminist hype. They hate you too. They push for you to be sterilized. I didn't see any white women fighting against sisters on Norplant or on Depot. Grow up. I want to say one other thing. When I do these talks, I must say to you, I hated certain sorts of people in my classroom because if you come late, they would, and there's a kind of black person that doesn't realize how out of order they are. If I came into someone's classroom late, I would start taking notes and try to find out someone that would tell me versus, hey, disrupt the class for the teacher. Hey, what are you guys doing? That's stupid. I never saw in a university a white person do that. Not one time. I saw it constantly as a teacher of not understanding, you can't do that. I mean, this is serious, even though it's sort of informal, but it's serious. And nobody's hiding information on this platform. But people should also not hide their intelligence, their manners, their decorum. And it is, you would never disrupt a white person doing that. You'd wait. We should give each other, that's why I say treat me like I'm white. Give each other the respect that we give other people. And nobody would disrupt John Hendrick Clark. Not that I'm on his level, but damn. And I always include the information, never. And the only reason you wouldn't get information is because something like StreamYard, they kept taking down or making it impossible for me to send a note out. That's the only way that you wouldn't get it, is that I wasn't allowed to give it to you. So let's not make things complicated about information and facts. The last thing I'm going to say to you is I'm going to read more of this. This book is absolutely fascinating. I'm going to try to read most of this book, if not in its entirety. Today I did a lot of explanation because a lot of our folks aren't honest. When they don't understand something, they just, and no, you don't know what the hell was said. I would explain. I'd rather you know than read a whole bunch of difficult words and you not know what I'm talking about. I wouldn't have written it as hard for someone to, that's an academic book. And that means this was written for scholars, for people who deal with all the Greek and Latin and all this. And it's not made for. And when I talk to them and say, you need to write a more simplistic book for it to be accessible to the people you want to reach. But this is an academic book. So I took the time. I could have gone faster because the stories, the complexity of the writing is a lot easier once we get through, but it's worthwhile to do the introduction. So everybody that likes this, please like it, share it. I'm going to do, I'm going to come back and do part 2 tomorrow, or today, I'm sorry. And I've got to get ready to do my sermon. So I'm going to try to finish my sermon early. And if I get it my way, I'm going to try to maybe start this maybe 7 o'clock, 7, 8 o'clock, I think. 7, 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock. I'll make certain it's not 10. That way we'll have more time. It'll move faster. Hopefully I can get this done in 3 readings. May God bless you. Shalom, blessed Sabbath to all of you. Wake up and again, love people. I don't want you to hate anybody. I'm very clear, folks. My family is significantly European, significantly all kinds of stuff. There's only one race, the human race. There's only one people. Everybody comes from one man and one woman. They had to have been black, or what we call black. And white people come from black people, whether they want to admit it or not. That's their problem. Okay. Love self, respect self, protect self. And again, MFM, come on, y'all. MFM, MFM, MFM. Love, respect, help one another. My channel, I'm close to 2,000. I need people to subscribe. Do me this favor. If you can't contribute, consider blasting my content everywhere you can think of, in particular people that don't want to hear it. I absolutely love outraged followers. Share this. You wouldn't believe. People need to know this is a heavily shadowed banned channel. Like I said, I was reaching sometimes 4,000 or 5,000 people at a time, and they began to work the algorithm to keep people from hearing. And I wasn't running after 4,000 or 5,000, but if 4,000 or 5,000 want to hear me, why not? And again, please like, share, subscribe, and donate. And you can do it through Cash App, which is DrRandyShort, Dr. Randy Short, Dr. Randy Short, Dr. Randy Short, Dr. Randy Short, and or Zelle or PayPal, which is wrandyshort@gmail.com, which is also my personal email if you want to write me. wrandyshort@gmail.com, 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 wrandyshort for all the special education people, wrandyshort@gmail.com. Or I have a Patreon, which is Dr. Randy Short. I also have a GoFundMe. When I get up here next time, I'm going to put it up there. And I want to let everybody know, we changed the date. We want to have a Patriarch Summit. We're trying to get black men to work together. We want to do it in August, so I have more time. We trying to do it towards late August. I'm hoping that the gentleman that wrote this book, I asked him, would he be a speaker? I want to do what we can to have it here in D.C. I really do. What I have to do to get this thing rolling is that Chef C and I need to come up with about $700 to put a deposit down for the space. So I'm asking folks, definitely, I'm going to put a GoFundMe up, but we need we need $700 for the space. And in reality, we'll need about $1,200 just to have the venue, because we're going to have to pay for security. You need it these days. But it'll be a Patriarch Summit. I'm looking to have people talk about farming, talk about firearms, talk about family, talk about business, talk about manhood. I look to have some psychologists and some other people come in and just look at what we can begin to do for each other in real terms. So also, I want to encourage everybody, if you like Tariq Nasheed, there's a movie called Microphone Check. It comes out next Thursday on the 23rd. I think I'm in it. I know I got interviewed. It's probably going to be funny. I'm just very honest with people. And anyway, may God bless all of you. Keep praying for me. If you can't send something, you can't get people to subscribe, do what you can. I would like to get this channel moving again. Yeah, I have no idea. It wasn't a lack of interest in sharing the books. It really was health happens, as my sister Deborah says. Much love to all my sisters. I thank all the moderators. Sister Star, God bless you. Brother Negro, Torrance, Darren, again, Torrance Jarrell, bless you. Copper, Bones, bless you. Oh, El Negro Hotep, you are such a gift. You always send me so much information. I appreciate you. Chris, Manico, Jumbo, Van Richthoven, and Miriam. Randall, oh my God. Indiana, let me see. So, and Darren, hello. Yeah, shitty. Eric Jones. Okay. Everybody, much love to you. I better get out of here so I can be ready for our fellowship tomorrow. Yeah, please. And let's chat. Send me an email, OG brother. I mean, before I fall asleep, maybe we can chat via email. I look forward to that. I actually try to respond to lots of emails. As long as the people don't send me like dozens, I can't respond to everything people think about. But I do want to talk to you. And again, you guys agree. I'm going to read from this book again. And we're back. I thank you for your prayers. This is Tip of the Spear. Unfortunately, the lowest price I could get this for was like $28. And it's paperback. The hardback is $80. But I said, you know what? I'm going to go back to read. I got to go back to reading books to my friends. And so I spent basically $30 because I said, this is too powerful to not share. And if you see on my book, I got much to share with y'all. So let me lay down, take a nap, do some praying, and after my Sabbath worship, I try to put some stuff out for you. Okay, you guys be good and share this, share this, share this, share this, share this. Okay, I'm done. I'm gonna stop. Much love to you. I see you, brother Judah, and thank you, brother Judah. Thank you, OG brother. Thank you for everybody that's been on. Um, uh, wow, I just thank everybody. Okay, I feel great. I'm back. I felt like I was in jail not doing this. Take care.